below if you guys would like your own natal chart reading, synastry reading, progress natal chart reading, mini natal chart reading. The information for all of that is going to be in the description box below. You guys can send me an email window should pop up and we can go from there. Now, today I will be answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. Let's give everyone a few minutes to join the room, to join the chat. Welcome to everyone joining. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. If you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. What should we talk about today? Welcome everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. If you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. What should we talk about today? Hey, welcome. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. So if you have any questions, feel free to comment below. What should we talk about today, you guys? Welcome to everyone joining. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. What should we talk about today? Welcome to everyone joining. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. What should we talk about today? Hey, Infinite Zebra, how are you doing? Hey, Praveen. Welcome to everyone joining. I'm answering astrology questions and metaphysical questions, questions about your natal chart. So Pisces and Scorpio energy together in a relationship or in your own natal chart. Let me know. Welcome to everyone joining. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. What should we talk about today, you guys? What would you like to know about? In your own natal chart. So the Pisces energy, when you have Pisces and Scorpio, I find the Pisces really softens the Scorpio up, in my own opinion, when you have it taking place in your own natal chart, because Scorpio is ruthless, okay, on its own. Scorpio can be cutthroat, Scorpio can be intense, okay? So it could be this, like it depends also which of the energies you're going into throughout life. I find a lot of the time Scorpios do tend to attract like Pisces friends to kind of assist the Scorpio individual. Like let's say you're strictly Scorpio and then you attract a Pisces friend to kind of assist the Scorpio in terms of like sometimes not being so harsh in terms of like being ruthless and like cutting, let's say, people off so quickly and all these things. So it's this, so when you have it in your own natal chart, it's like, you're kind of like this as a person, right? You don't go into the extreme Scorpio always, you know, like there's part of you that's kind of like, okay, maybe I can kind of like, you know, see in the situation, you know, where the person's going to go or what they're going to do, right? It's like softening up that Scorpio energy. It doesn't make it as like cutthroat and intense, okay? Because Scorpio on its own, you guys, is very, very intense. It's very cutthroat. It's going to cut people off in a second. It's really this. And the whole reason I find Scorpio cuts people off, and this is that video that I was telling you guys about earlier as well, is I have the video called A Deeper Look at Scorpio Energy, okay? And if you look at the houses for Scorpio, the 11th house of quote-unquote friendship for Scorpio is usually Virgo, okay? I mean, it is Virgo if we're looking at Scorpio as an energy, right? If we put all of the energies in their own house, right? Scorpio being the first house, the 11th house of Scorpio is Virgo, okay? So this is regardless of where you guys have, you know, Virgo in your chart, like whatever's going on with your own houses. This is just if you're looking at Scorpio as an energy. So the whole reason Scorpio is very ruthless when it comes to quote unquote friendships, okay, with that 11th house is because Virgo is in there. So it's like they feel like they can achieve this level of perfection within. So they kind of hold people to a high standard, okay? Hey, Miss Stank, how are you doing? So it's this, because they hold people to a high standard, it's like they kind of expect people to be that way as well, because they also hold themselves to a high standard. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, because they can be that way, they're kind of like, well, why can't you be this way as well, right? So a lot of the time when someone makes like, sometimes with Scorpio energy, like the smallest mistake, like let's say like they're ruthless energy, let's say someone like shows up late or whatever, they get cut immediately a lot of the time, right? So then when you have Pisces, it's like gonna soften that up. It's gonna be like, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't cut everybody off all the time. Hey everyone, I'm doing well. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. What do you think, Miss Tank? I'm curious. You said that makes sense. You can be ruthless and then cry. That's the Pisces. That's literally Pisces. How you went wrong and you should have been more sweet. That's literally the Pisces energy. I'm answering astrology questions and metaphysical questions. Questions about your natal charts. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. Hey everyone, I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. What would you guys like to know today? Yes, Infinite Zebra, I have a video on all the moon signs. I have a video on all the sun signs. I have playlists, you guys, so you guys can go under my playlist section and you guys can see what you're interested in learning about and then click on that playlist. What you can do, Arvind, is you can go and look at your natal chart on any of the websites and then come back, okay? So any of the websites, type in birth chart information, put in your information, and then, you know, you'll get your sun, moon, rising, and all of that. And with that being said, you know, you can see what you're interested in and then come back here. Okay, but being born on the 26th, basically you're here to master money, which is interesting that you're asking about your career. You said, how do I see power in career in a natal chart? I would look at Scorpio and I would look at Capricorn for that. You said, you're welcome. You said, oh, you have a question about manifesting with dark matter, dark energy rather than light. Been into it lately. Not sure if you know. I'm not sure that I know, but what I will say is be very aware when you're operating with energies that are outside of you, because they will give you, okay, what you want for a short period of time, but then they're going to bring chaos into your life, okay? So we actually just saw this happen in real time. I realized this after I did the reading on this individual. I'm not going to name them here, but recently I did the reading on this individual, this industry reading on my other channel, and I was thinking about how this person later, after when I was like reflecting on it, I was thinking about how this individual probably maybe did some sort of occult types of things for themselves. You know what I mean? Sometimes when people are dabbling into the occult, you know, they might do like candle magic, which is very like novice, okay? That's very like early stages occult types of things. And then obviously you have more like intense things, okay? But, you know, I feel like this person, and this is just my own opinion allegedly, but I feel like this person was involved in something like that, you know, to kind of elevate themselves. And now everything kind of blew up in their face, right? With everything that kind of took place in these last few days and weeks and so on and so forth. So you got to be careful, okay? Because anytime you're working with darker energies or entities, they're going to come back to collect. And it's usually when you least expect it, okay? And they're going to bring in chaos into your life. So I'm not trying to put fear out there, but that's kind of what happens. You're welcome. Okay, as a 4, okay, that's gonna be, because you said I mentioned how romance being a scam on Threads. Yes, I could absolutely explain, okay, because here is the thing, and this is just my own opinion, allegedly, but I have a video on this, and I recently shared it with you guys. I called it Love, Dating, and Narcissists, okay, not narcissists, it's narcissists, the Greek mythological character. Basically, like, what I was trying to get at in that video, and, you know, it was a little bit more, that video was a little bit more poetic, I guess you could say, because it's like a metaphor and so on and so forth. But, you know, getting straight to the point, you know, what I was kind of trying to get at in that video was like, realistically, like, relationships, first of all, are mirrors of ourselves, but they're also mirrors of our shadows. And sometimes the person is actually just mirroring you back to yourself, right? So it's like, ultimately, through relationships, you're kind of falling in love with yourself, okay? So the whole reason I was saying that it's a scam is because sometimes people who are maybe a little bit more aware and a little bit more in the darker energy, they're going to take this whole concept and they're going to create a person or personality that, you know, they want to be, to kind of hook you in to siphon your energy, okay? And then you get into this cognitive dissonance state, and this happens a lot, especially for the feminine energy, okay? This happens a lot. You get hooked into the cognitive dissonance state because you're always trying to justify in your mind why you made this decision, even though this person technically in one way, shape, or form tricked you, okay? Because they were wearing a mask or they were a fake person and so on and so forth. So that happens more than you would know, okay? So this is why people who operate out of the feminine energy, they have to come into their power first, okay? You actually have to balance your masculine and feminine energy within so you can have strong boundaries and discernment, so you can have the awareness when these people are coming towards you to siphon your energy, okay? Because everything down here on the earth plane is actually a siphon on the feminine energy, and this has nothing, by the way, to do with gender, okay? Because we all have masculine and feminine energy within us. Some people are more feminine energy dominant, some people are more masculine energy dominant. Some people have completely suppressed the feminine energy within. Usually the people who have suppressed the feminine energy within, they're the ones who are kind of on the hunt to kind of collect feminine energy from other people, right? Because they've suppressed their own feminine energy within. Ultimately, what you want to do and what everybody wants to do is come into a balance of masculine and feminine energy within, so you can be energetically sovereign, so you're not codependent, is really what it is, okay? So that's why I was saying that it's a scam, because it's like, it turns into this, I call this the Neptunian fog, right? You kind of get pulled into this Neptunian energy, and a lot of the time it's also kind of deterring you from your path, what you're meant to be doing down here. Like, it's more of a frequency thing, and again, you have to see where you're operating out of in terms of your chakras. If you're still into the whole fairy tale and you learned a lot about love and relationships through movies, well, in that particular case, it's going to be hard to break free from that, okay, is really what it is. But kind of when you go into the heart chakra and above, you go more into energetic sovereignty. So it's like you're not approaching it in terms of like the romance aspect of things. I really, really hope that that makes sense. Exactly. One of you guys are saying limerence, fantasy, illusions. Exactly. That's all Neptune in the shadow, okay, is what it is. And if you think about it, we were in the age of Pisces, right? We were in the age of Pisces, and the age of Pisces was an inversion also, but it was also a huge siphon on the feminine energy within. And that's pretty much what I talk about on my threads as well. Like, I talk about the feminine energy being siphoned, and this is within everybody, because the feminine energy is your sexual energy as well. It's in your sacral chakra. That's the way that I see it, right? So for some people, their feminine quote unquote energy or their manifestor's energy kind of gets, let's say, siphoned through like lust or sexual like types of addictions, even, right? Like sacral chakra in the shadow. For other people, you know, it gets kind of siphoned through the romantic illusion, okay, and delusion is really what it is. And you kind of lose yourself in that. And all of that is like, again, you know, years and years of programming and through TV and all these types of things. So it's like, it's just a matter of waking up from this. Because the thing is, what I was thinking about too, recently also, and I was thinking about writing this on my threads too, I was thinking about how people call it like quote unquote falling in love, but at the same time we also have the whole concept of falling from grace, right? So it's just like, why is it called falling? I always kind of felt like it was meant to be you remembering that you are loved. Sometimes a person activates this within you, and sometimes you go through a few of these quote unquote activations, okay? But ultimately, like the end goal, the way that I see it, is you want to be balanced internally, masculine, feminine energy, right? And you don't want to be depending on another person, okay, is really what it is. But that takes work, okay, is really, really what it is. Because it's like back in the day, and I was saying this in the previous live as well, like I was basically saying how like a lot of relationships were very root chakra based, right? So it's like people needed to be in relationships, first of all, to access resources, yes, but sometimes it was also like giving them security or stability. Like it's all lower chakra things, right? So it's like sometimes people get triggered in a relationship, let's say it's ending because it's actually triggering your root chakra. So you kind of have to do the exploration within the self to see like what's happening internally. Like, why do you need another person? Like that's my question always for anything, even like for myself sometimes, like, why am I doing what am I doing, right? Like, what's the reason? Like, why do you want this, okay? Is really what it is. And you kind of have to go through the journey within and explore. Okay, so that's kind of how that works. Hey T, welcome. You said, do you think we kind of have to go through more romance, quote unquote, to truly learn how to be stronger and balanced? Is it even possible to just do it within without practicing with others to help us get there? No. So it's like, it's this, you kind of go through activations, right? So I kind of talked about that in my like sexual energy, like for growth video and healing. It's like, again, everyone kind of starts off in the lower chakras, right? It's just the way the earth plane is. It's what we're taught and so on and so forth. So it's like, because everyone starts off in the lower chakras, it's like you might have these perceptions on relationships is really what it is. And it's like sometimes people are teaching, you know, others, oh, like, you know, get money out of this person and so on and so forth. But in my own opinion, if you live in a country where you can make your own money, probably better to make your own money. Okay, again, doesn't mean you can't be in these relationships. It's a different type of frequency that's connected to relationships, right? If it's out of the lower chakras and you're dependent on another person, well, that's not fun, because then the other person can control you, is really, really what it is. That's just the reality of this earth plane. Like, no one's gonna give you anything, like, because they're nice and like, oh, it's for free, you know? There's always something attached to it, is really what it is. So it's like, if you can kind of get there yourself, right, you might as well. And then you can kind of have more of a level and even playing ground, right? But it's this, you kind of go through these, again, like activations and so on and so forth, because it's like, again, it depends what the wounding is really what it is. Because it's like, again, and this is the other thing that annoys me, because I talk about this on my threads, and people these days are always talking about destiny swapping and like destiny swapping with people. And it's like, you can't really destiny swap, or you can't really have your destiny swapped. You can kind of have agents of chaos come into your life who are going to, again, bring through this Neptunian fog, okay, is really what it is. And the Neptunian fog, what it's doing is, it's kind of like their end goal is to get you to not listen to your intuition. Like, they kind of want you to feel so good in the moment and the vibes, right? And you know, you think it's romance and so on and so forth because it feels nice, but it's like a Neptunian fog. Like, it's like that shadow energy. And it's really hard for people to break free from that. One of you guys mentioned limerence. And it's this, okay? But it's like, again, you know, you have to explore and be like, well, first of all, maybe why is that person still in your life, right? It's like, do you think you might not find anybody else? Or did they hook into a wound that you have? And so on and so forth. So that's what I was saying. So people can't really swap or take your destiny, but what they can do is they can kind of attach to you and siphon your energy, is really what it is. And then by them siphoning your energy, they're using your energy to manifest for themselves, which is annoying, right? Like, why would you allow someone to use your energy to manifest for themselves when you can use the energy and manifest for yourself? But most people are powerless, right? So that's the struggle. We're not powerless, like they feel like they don't have any power, but it's all about reclaiming your power and like calling your power back to yourself, is really what it is, instead of putting it on another person, that another person will get you there. So it's like, even if you feel that way, then you have to explore and be like, well, why do you think another person will get you there? Why do you think you can't get there yourself? Again, you know, provided that you do live in a country where you have access to resources and you're able to do all these things, especially when it's connected to money and finances, okay? So it's this, it's really, really this. But like, again, you know, you will meet people and you will have that sexual attraction with people. And I feel like it kind of keeps going ping pong until you neutralize whatever needs to be neutralized within. Maybe it's jealousy, maybe it's manipulation. And you know what? It doesn't even have to be in romantic relationships. It could be in friendships as well, okay? Because these traits are going to come out all the time, okay? You know, like as soon as you get close to someone. So I hope that makes sense. Hey, everyone. Thank you, Sundog. Thank you, Sundog. I love that you're part of this community as well. You said you talked to a friend that is deep into psychedelics. See, and I have one person in the chat that's literally confirming everything that I'm saying. You said you have a friend that's deep into psychedelics. They do not see the Saturnian grid, nor do they see the Saturnian eyes. My threads mentioned this. So that's my question. I asked this about people who do those substances. Either they go outside of the grid, okay, or they're still within it. Do you know what I mean? It depends on your level of consciousness. But I do feel like anytime you're doing any sort of substances, you're still within this realm. You know what I mean? It's just like a different layer to this realm. That's the way that I see it. So it kind of depends to see, okay? Because a lot of people draw those eyes, and I find that those eyes that people are drawing is the Saturnian, quote unquote, grid, okay? That's the way that I see it. But yeah, so that's my question for people who do those substances, because sometimes they might exit it, right? But my next question is, okay, let's say people do exit it when they do these substances, and then maybe they do exit this realm. I'm sure they also don't see astrology either, right? Because astrology is only pertaining to this realm. I hope that that makes sense. Yeah, exactly. Because everyone's in their lower chakras. One of you guys said everywhere you go, people are either talking about drugs, sex, or money. Exactly. That's the problem in the world right now. I feel like we're at peak like wounding, but we're also at peak like degeneracy. I love it. You said stay single, get that money. I mean, here's the way that I see it, okay? If you have someone in your life that's not distracting you from your path, because this is how I see relationships. Either relationships are distracting you from what you're trying to do, or they are assisting you in your journey. But it's like, you first have to be so firm in your solar plexus and in your truth and know what you're doing so you don't get distracted, okay? That's the whole name of the game, because the 7th house, you guys, is your friendships and your lovers, but it's also your enemies. And the enemies, the way that I see it, is like they're distracting you, right? They're bringing through, they're like agents of chaos. You know what I mean? And that's what I was saying about the destiny swapping. It's like, People can't take your destiny, but they can prolong your time, okay? And down here on the earth plane, again, because it's Saturnian, the clock is ticking, is really what it is, okay? Is really, really what it is. So it's like they can prolong the time and then basically trigger another reincarnation. That's what everything's connected to, in my own opinion, okay? Down here on this earth plane. And then it's like, you know, let's say the time passes and you're overly focused on this person. Because the thing is, sometimes people come into your life, let's say you're more in the healing energy, or maybe you're a 12th house person, or more, or maybe you just possess more healing energy. Maybe you have Scorpio, maybe you even have Cancer, okay? It's like you might attract people who are really dark, okay? And then these people who are really dark have a lot of unprocessed things. So whether you're aware of it or not, you're unconsciously processing for them, okay? And it's like, then you're wasting your energy processing for that person instead of focusing the energy on yourself. And it's like, here is the thing, okay? It's like, you can't really heal anybody, okay? You can maybe assist them, you can plant seeds, you can, you know, like be kind of like a space holder for them, but they have to be willing to do the work for themselves. If they don't want to do the work for themselves, it's like you're basically energetically processing this because you're energetically sensitive, because you're merging to their fields, okay? And it's like, now maybe you're tired all the time, or maybe you're drained all the time, or unfortunately the most extreme manifestation you might manifest, like, or it's not you're manifesting, but like, let's say health issues might arise, okay, because of this merging to the dark energy that has nothing to do with your own energy field. So it's like, if you are in that energy, you have to figure out how to close up your aura and not allow these people into your energetic space. Solar plexus gang, yes. You said the book of Enoch, all the angels had a bunch of eyes. Exactly. Hey, how are you guys doing? You said, oh my gosh, exactly. It's exhausting having your energy clear from people and substances. Exactly. It's magical. Exactly. That's why it is important to learn your energy. Do you know what I mean? And be in your power is really what it is. Is really what it is. Because otherwise, like when you're not aware, someone's siphoning your energy, okay? And if it doesn't have to be a person, it could be society, right? It's all of this. So that's the thing, you have to come into your power so you can kind of create what you want for yourself. And at that point in time, when you're firm and you're strong in your energy, you, at that point in time, again, if you have mastered the lower chakra wounds, you'll have more discernment, right? To allow certain people into your life. But then it's like also the higher up you go in terms of your frequency, you again can attract, or people will be attracted to you, okay, that have dark energy and lower vibrational energy, because they're always trying to throw you off your path. That's the whole spiritual WAR down here, you guys, okay? There's basically the people who come down here, which is everybody to a certain extent, but then you also have the people who are super unhealed, right? So there's certain individuals who come down here trying to do something, complete something, and it's like you get energetically targeted from a young age. And I don't mean that in a fear-based way at all. You can just see, like people who have a lot of light, maybe when they were kids, they got bullied, for example, or however it could manifest, okay? Like whatever you'll see in the chart where the soft spot is going to be for that person, right? And it's like all these things are always kind of trying to push the person down, basically, right? But what I was thinking about yesterday is like, even in like the most amount of darkness, you still can turn on the light, right? And it's still shining, okay? Even though it's like maybe one light, right? So light always wins, but it's like, it doesn't mean that these people won't come through trying to cause chaos, drama, issues, all these things, okay? And it's just like really unnecessary. So that's why you have to have discern, like laser, like focus, you know, kind of like a hawk, like making sure that everything is on point, you know? I'm just gonna go up and see what you guys were saying up here. Okay, one of you guys asked how to stop drinking alcohol. Okay, hard to say because I literally want to say just try to stop. Just like cut it out, but I'm not sure, like, are you in the addictive stage? Like, I don't know where you're at with the alcohol. If you are in some form of addiction, then you have to try to get to the root of what the addiction is, okay? If you're just kind of drinking it socially, then maybe you care about what other people think, or maybe you think you're not gonna have fun when you go out, or maybe you think that there's not gonna be anything to do. Connect it to the solar plexus chakra always. I'm gonna connect it all to the solar plexus, okay? And like realistically, you guys, you have to understand that a lot of this system has been created to serve the shadow patriarchy, okay? It's not even a real patriarchy because women and children are protected. It's a shadow patriarchy. In my opinion, allegedly, okay? It's all shadow masculine energy, okay? So when you kind of see that everything is playing into that, including alcohol and drinking and going out and not being aware, okay? Maybe it'll assist you in cutting it out. Yes, I'm here, you guys. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. You said you have Mars in Gemini square, Venus and square Saturn, Venus in Virgo and Saturn in Pisces, and your Mars is conjunct the ascendant. You have mostly water in your chart, but that's like all mutable in there. Because the thing is, like, okay, this is what I'm going to say. Mars square Saturn could potentially be good in terms of like going after business, for example, or like someone who's a hustler and a hard worker. Yes. The Mars square Venus could be a struggle because it's like, it's your masculine feminine energy that's kind of like, you know, not on the same page. But it's all mutable in there. And then you said you have water. I feel like you have a hard time focusing on what you want to do. Is that true? Let me know. Hey, Concerned. No worries. Thank you for being a part of the chat and for being here. You said Gnostics thought the material realm is the hell realm and our bodies were prisons. Some didn't even procreate. Exactly. So they wouldn't bring other souls to hell. I talk about that on my threads, you guys. I feel like sometimes I'm a little bit too intense and a little bit hardcore. I'm so glad some of you guys are aware of this. Because it's like, I just feel like I'm just like intense in terms of like, yes, that's exactly what it is down here. We are restricted. That's why I talk about this Earth plane being ruled by Saturn, because Saturn is Satan, and that's why the groups worship Saturn, okay? There's that energetic grid that I tell you guys about around the Earth realm is really what it is. So it's like, you know, when you look at it, Saturn is time, karma, okay, and like hard work, effort. And I'm even willing to say, recently I've been thinking about Saturn also being connected to the shadow patriarchy, because it's not a real patriarchy, it's a shadow patriarchy. So that's all Saturn. So Saturn's ruling everything down here is really, really what it is. So it's interesting that Gnostics say that, because that's how I feel. Like that's what I hook into from existing down here. I talk about it on my threads too. I literally made a post where I was like, oh, so interesting that people who are religious like fear H-E-L-L. It's like, you're already there. You're like already here. I mean, here's the thing, okay? It's not all about being negative. Like my perspective is like, okay, this is what it is. Let's have fun anyways and do what we love and enjoy our time here while we can, okay? You know, and like however we can. But it's pretty intense. So Melissa, you're pretty on point with that. Yeah, Julie, that's the reason. It's all that mutable energy in there, especially the mutable Mars. I appreciate you guys as well. I read one of the Gnostic books way back. It was interesting. Like Gnosticism was kind of like the quote unquote like religious part of like Christianity. What I did back then, and I have the book recommendations on here, is that I kind of went to like the religions and like the spiritual roots of religion. So I kind of tried to read the spiritual roots of all the religions. So if you guys want, you can check out my book recommendations video. You said you cannot prevent your energy from being siphoned because you have a lot of 12th house energy. Yeah, that's the struggle. So you have been manifesting for others. Exactly, that's the struggle. How do you close your aura? You have to basically, okay, so the trick with the 12th house is you have to raise your frequency. I know the New Agers say this all the time, and it's like a slogan, and it's like a little bit like, you know, like overdone, but really it's connected to this, okay? So raising your frequency, healing, clearing, having the awareness of your soft spots and your wounds, okay? Because the 12th house can also play into other people's dreams and fantasies when you have the 12th house as well. So it's this, and also the 12th house kind of has to keep it moving. Do you know what I mean? So this is the way that I see the 12th house, especially when you have a lot of it in your chart. The 12th house is a healer, yes, and you're here to transmute energy. If you're transmuting for one person, it's a waste of your energy because you could actually transmute for multiple people at once if you elevate your frequency. Now, I call this holding space energy. This is just my own opinion, and it's connected to your solar plexus chakra, okay? So you have to develop the strong solar plexus to close up your aura, okay, is really what it is. So you can kind of elevate your energy, okay? So you can kind of assist, if you so choose to, obviously, more people, because it's a better use of the 12th house to clear energy with multiple people at once versus one person, okay? And that's what I was saying with the relationships earlier and like the romance energy and kind of getting siphoned and sucked into that fog, because the 12th house is always looking for things that feel good, right? That's why they kind of go into escapism and into the higher vibes and the realms and so on and so forth, okay? So 12th house Neptunian energy isn't really part of this realm, okay? Because again, we kind of have Saturn, and even if you look at the planets, you have Saturn and then you have Neptune. So it's kind of like outside it's like operating outside of this realm, if that makes sense, right? And it's like the water energy, and then it's like the earth signs. Like, yes, we have Saturn down here. I talk about Saturn all the time. But we also have, of course, so Saturn is Capricorn, then we have Virgo, and then we also have Taurus, right? So if you look at Pisces, 12th house Neptune energy, that's oppositional to Virgo. So you're completely struggling operating down here. So the 12th house, like what I was thinking about recently too, is like the 12th house deals with foreign lands, okay? And that's why you kind of have to keep it moving energetically, right? It's like the way that I see the 12th house is like the 12th house kind of gets taken on projects or assignments, right? Maybe you're at a job for a certain period of time, okay? And you have to get so good at hooking into the energy and knowing when it's done, okay? So when you get the job and as soon as it's exciting, your vibe is quote unquote high, right? When you're kind of over it and it's finished, you kind of have to move on, because that's kind of like the frequency saying that it's finished, okay? Because when you're now lowering your frequency without realizing, or your vibration, because you're kind of over it or you're bored or whatever it is, it's just done, okay? That phase of your life, you kind of lower your vibe without realizing. Then because your frequency is lower, you now absorb the collective unconscious, which is really dark, okay? Does that make sense? And then you feel like you're energetically drowning. That's what happens to the 12th house when they're just overwhelmed. They feel like they're energetically drowning because they're picking up on everything, because you're not meant to be in that phase anymore. And then you kind of go into vices and substances and all of these things to escape, right? To get that quote unquote temporary high, to escape, right? But it's like you're not meant to be in that phase anymore. That's the way that I see it now. So it's like it deals with foreign lands too. So it's like you kind of want to keep the energy moving, right? To keep your frequency quote unquote high. And not only this, in movement, right? So it could literally be moving like walking, running, dancing, like physical movement, but it could literally be like switching, jobs, these types of things, like where you live and so on and so forth. Sometimes maybe you even have the interest in travel. It's like when you're always on the go, energetically, you're not hooking into the dark energies. Does that make sense? Because it's like when you stay somewhere for too long, and this is for everybody, that's when you start to hook into Saturn, that flat energy. It's flat, it's boring, it's depressing. Anywhere when you're there for too long, you feel the Saturn, okay? So that's that. I hope that makes sense, you guys. Yeah, merging to energies, exactly. I appreciate you guys as well. Merging energies, lowering your own frequency, exactly. Most of the time, if you're merging, you are lowering your frequency, you guys, because it's like no one's gonna be your frequency. Does that make sense? And being a 12th house person, you're probably gonna be prone to attracting people towards you that are lower vibrational than you or darker, because they want your healing energy. But not only do they want your healing energy, they want your manifestor's energy, because they can't manifest for themselves. So usually when we talk about like narcissists, here's the thing, like most of the collective has some sort of narcissistic qualities, okay? That's just part of the experience, and that's also part of the structure, okay? So that's there. But when we talk about people who are actual narcissists, the way that I see these people is they're really trapped in their lower chakras and they're cut off from source. You have to be in your heart space to be connected to source, God, and the creator. If you're in your lower chakras, in the shadow especially, okay? So that's solar plexus in the shadow, which is ego, okay? Then we have sacral in the shadow, which could be codependency, lust, like all these things, hypersexuality or repression of sexuality as well, or like shame, like those emotions. Or if you're in the root chakra only, if you're chasing these things like money, status, power, so on and so forth, you're cut off from a heart space is really, really what it is, okay? So sometimes those people, it's interesting because they could be chasing these things, but they can't necessarily manifest for themselves. So they're trying to hook into someone who has like a lot of source energy, which tends to be a 12th house person. And then 12th house person, you kind of have to look and explore within yourself why you're allowing this person into your life. Do you feel bad for them? Are you kind of falling for that romance scam that I was mentioning earlier as well, or whatever? Do they make you feel nice, or is it a validation thing? Like, this is the thing, you have to see what is your own thing, okay, that allows this person into your life, because how they've hooked into your energy and they're actually siphoning from you to manifest for themselves is really, really what it is. So that's a struggle, because the higher up you go in the frequencies in your own vibration and you cleanse and you clear, you're going to have more of these people attracted toward your energy, the unhealed people. But again, you have to be able to dodge them, okay, and be like, okay, no, okay, putting up the boundaries, and even energetic boundaries, because people can also siphon your energy in the astral, okay? Okay, I'm glad that it's making it click for you. You said the Hermetic principles are helpful as well. Mentalism, the correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, gender. Interesting. I'm going to screenshot that. Hey, everyone. Welcome. It makes sense about Saturn, right? That's why I'm saying the Earth plane is Saturnian. To me, that's just how it feels. I only talk about what it feels like to exist here is really what it is. Okay, I connected back to astrology, and that's also because I think about astrology like all the time, and I'm connecting everything back to that. Because honestly, like the foundation of this Earth plane is numbers, you guys, and math, okay? So numerology and astrology is there. So it's just like, that's just how it feels, because it's like, and this is my whole thing too, when people talk about manifestation, and I get these days, because here is the thing, okay? I found out about all of these things actually at a very young age. I first found out about The Secret when I was in grade 7. So what is that, like age 10, 11, 12? Maybe age 12. That's when I first found out about The Secret, okay? So that's like when it got planted into my mind. But then I found out about, like, you know, the spiritual world, and like my quote unquote first spiritual awakening, okay, was like back in 2012, okay? So how many years ago was that? So I've been like around all of this for a really, really long time and learning about all of these concepts. So it's like these days when I hear people talking about manifestation, it's true to a certain extent, because you can't fully manifest what you want. And I also don't like when people say that people are manifesting situations for themselves, because like, what about the people who are like currently living in a WAR? Like, how did they manifest that for themselves? Do you know what I mean? They didn't. It's because this earth plane is inverted backwards, and siphoning energy is really, really what it is. Like, those people didn't do anything to quote unquote manifest that for themselves. So that's what I mean. There's like holes, you know, and it's like in a perfect world, which would be Neptune, okay, a Neptunian world, okay. By the way, you guys, I saw the Temple of Poseidon, which is Neptune, which was so amazing. But anyways, and that was in Greece. So anyways, it's like in the perfect world, which is Neptune, okay, a lot of these concepts are true, okay? And I think that's why it resonates with people, okay? Because, you know, in the higher realms it's true, but not down here. Down here we're restricted, okay? Is really, really what it is. It's like people think they can have whatever they want, but a lot of it depends on your upbringing. It depends on your belief systems. It depends on like where you were born also, because I find that also where you were born kind of leaves an energetic imprint on you as well, okay? You kind of take on the energies of that place too, right? So it's like, let's say you were born in a place or a country that isn't the West, and then you came to the West, you might have more to clear energetically to achieve this quote unquote manifestation compared to someone, let's say, who was born in a Western country, or maybe has like generations of maybe wealth and so on and so forth. It's easy for them to talk about manifestation because they were born into those things, because then it's possible in their minds. You know what I mean? It's harder to create something that you've never had versus people who already have these things, you know? So you'll see a lot of the time people who are talking about manifestation, not all of them, but a lot of them, okay, are already coming from these types of backgrounds where it's like they already have the things, or like they have the belief system. So it's like you have to clear a lot, and you have to clear a lot of programming to actually achieve it. It's like a lot of mental power. Doesn't mean it's not possible. I'm not saying that at all. I just mean you have to clear a lot, okay? Especially if you come from like an opposite type of background or upbringing or cultural upbringing and these types of things, okay? You said you realized your nervous system was out of balance. You've been lower throat humming multiple times to activate your vagus nerve, and it's helped you a lot. I think it helps balance things. That's good. Hey, Tiffany, how are you? I was just thinking about you earlier, Tiffany. How's your situation going? You said, do I think the energy of a country helps create continuous WARs? It's all siphoning, especially where the WAR is taking place currently. They do it on specific ley lines, you guys, okay? Because it's, again, inverted. They want to siphon the energy is really what it is, from the people that are witnessing it, but also from the people there, okay, that are experiencing it. It's all like RITUALS, okay? That's basically what's happening. You said your girlfriend has a 7th house stellium and you feel like this conflicts with your 6th house north node. Why do you feel that way? I'm curious to know. North node in Aries. I appreciate you guys as well. So yes, Anna, back to your question. I'm just like back at the top where you were asking how to close your aura. Coming into your truth, coming into your power. I have a video called How to Stay Grounded as a 12th house person. If you guys are new here, check out that video. It's under my 12th house playlist, okay? Not engaging in substances, having full awareness, trying to get enough sleep is really what it is, okay? Because it's all connected to the mind. Exactly. You said they also know that we collectively manifest. That's exactly it too. That's what they want. Like, that's why, like, every time they try to like plant the seeds, right? Because they need a certain amount of fear to create something. So like in 2020, when CV happened, I was shook because like that showed me where the collective consciousness was at, because it's like they plant the seed for the thing to take place. And if enough people feed into it, that thing takes place, right? So they're also using the collective's energy to manifest at the same time. So it's like, it's so many levels to it is really what it is. So since then, if you guys are paying attention, they're always trying to throw certain news stories at people, okay? In different like realms, okay? Is really what it is, because they want to see what's going to take off. But the thing is, what's kind of like a blessing right now is because of the internet and because everyone has a short attention span, whatever news story they break doesn't last long. So it's kind of hard for them to harness. Do you know what I mean? So it's like everything they kind of try to use against the people, it kind of backfires for them as well. So it's like really interesting to witness at the same time. Exactly, is really what it is. Thank you, Jamie. Exactly, you said it's to keep us panicked and confused. Exactly, easily controllable that way. That's why you have to come out of the lower three chakras. So this is what I mean. Like, I feel like when one comes out of their lower three chakra wounds, desires, whatever's going on in there, then you're going to operate outside of Saturn, okay? Because I feel like Saturn, which is the devil card in the tarot, which is Capricorn, the grid that I talk about is operating out of those lower three chakras, okay? And they need people to operate out of those lower three chakras. That's why I talk about clearing these things all the time, because when you're in your heart space and above, you kind of start living more for yourself. So you're kind of operating outside of it, okay? You're not as controlled anymore. That's what I mean. Like, it's possible to get there, but it's not the way that certain people explain it. Do you know what I mean? In terms of like, oh, you think it and it happens, or you visualize it and it happens, or you put it on a vision board. It's not necessarily this. Like, that's not the full picture, and that's not the full story, okay? Because it depends like what you feel is possible in your mind, but not just that. When you're in tune with your heart space, you're also living for yourself, because your heart space is your internal compass. Does that make sense? So you're not living in the box that's kind of created for you from a young age. Hey, Concern, what's new? You said what placements / aspects in a natal chart do I think might indicate being born into a cult and then leaving? The first one I thought of was Pluto, either in the 9th or the 12th. I can see that. I can also see that becoming a cult leader, that energy too. So Pluto in the 9th or the 12th, okay? With that being said, that could also be Scorpio occupying the 9th or the 12th house. A lot of the time, 12th house suns somehow get, siphoned into cults as well. I've noticed with them. They're susceptible. Maybe that's a better term, okay? 12th house suns are susceptible to cults because, and that could also be religion, organized religion, but it could be any type of cult because the 12th house sun is always looking for some sort of guide, okay? Maybe even Pisces sun, we can look at it that way as well. But for them, I wouldn't say they're necessarily born into it. I find that because of life, circumstances and so on and so forth, they're always kind of looking for someone to guide them. And also 12th house sun tends to have the absence of the father figure as well when they are growing up. So it's like they're always looking for some sort of guide, okay? That's why they turn towards spirituality or like God, source, the creator, because then they feel like they're being led by something higher and greater. But they are very prone to getting sucked into these cults. Like a lot of the cults that people talk about on Netflix, I'm willing to bet a lot of those people who participated were 12th house suns specifically, okay? You said exactly what I said. First generation in a different country, individuals always have it tough. Exactly, compared to staying in place for generations, more generational wealth. Exactly, okay? So that's the thing. It's like if you're making that jump from coming from, let's say, even poverty and trying to achieve, wealth, it's like it's a huge jump because it's a lot to do with energetic, like, first of all, energy, because the thing is, you guys, not only is the earth plane gridded, certain areas in the world are also energetically gridded, okay? Certain countries. And it's like, again, if you're born into that country, you kind of absorb, you can kind of look at it as like the energy of the country, yes, but also you absorb kind of like I don't want to fully say karma because it's not like a karmic thing, like you're doing anything, but you just absorb the energy, right? So let's say you leave, okay, the country and you go somewhere else, maybe where there's quote unquote better opportunities, right? You then still have to energetically like deprogram yourself from a lot of belief systems because usually it's generational is really what it is. Anything that's generational, like you have different types of generational things, right? Sometimes it's with money, sometimes it's with addictions, sometimes it's with belief systems, so it's this, but it's like it's hard, especially when we're looking at wealth and money, even in economics, because my first degree was economics, the first one that I did. Actually, I started with math, but then I did economics and then I did my math. But anyways, so even in economics, they teach you that most people are going to be born into or like play out the socioeconomic bracket that they are born into, right? So that just goes to show most of the time people are playing out the same generational patterns, okay? And I sometimes see that playing out like psychically with people, like people that I meet in the day-to-day, but even sometimes people like that are talking about their stories online, I can sometimes see how they're playing out the exact same story, okay? It doesn't just have to be connected to money. It can be whatever. It can be a situation or a circumstance and so on and so forth. Part of my theory sometimes is, let's say, for example, like they're trying to, so this is so subconscious and so deep-rooted. And by the way, guys, my disclaimer is always that I'm not a psychologist. It's just my own observation. But I feel like sometimes because of the experience that they had maybe with their parents, subconsciously they like end up in that same situation. First of all, it's generational, but they also from one level are trying to understand maybe the parents by ending up in that same situation. Like it's a little bit more abstract, I guess, but yes, there's that. But it's this with like the generational wealth. So it's incredibly hard, but it's not possible to break free from a certain economic bracket. You just have to work on a lot of your belief systems, okay, is really what it is. And like clear them and transmute them is really what it is. So it's this. Oh, hey, Beatrice, I saw you commenting something earlier. How are you doing? Let me go back and see. You said 12th house here. When it's time to leave, you feel it in your solar plexus. Exactly. You leave it to avoid being drained or depressed. Perfect example of what I was saying. It's exactly this, okay? So you guys have to develop that level of discernment to know when you're done, okay, in a situation, because that means you can kind of look at it as a task, project, assignment, like whatever way, shape, form you want to look at it, because the 12th house individual is usually being kind of transported through different situations and circumstances, because the thing is, you guys can kind of look at it as, because you're a 12th houser, you have a lot of karma to clear with a lot of people, right? So if you're in the same city your whole life and you have the same friends and you're at the same job, you can't clear karma with all those people, right? That you're meant to clear karma with, right? And again, it doesn't have to be bad karma. When we talk about karma, people always think it's bad. Sometimes it's just like an interaction where you say something inspirational without even realizing, you know what I mean? So it's like, you're always being prompted to move, okay, is really what it is. So you kind of have to get in tune with when it's time to kind of keep it going, okay? And that's for everybody, but for 12th house, just a little bit more because of the fact that, you know, it's just more karma that's accumulated. But that's true for everybody. Like, I don't think that anyone's meant to be in the same place for their entire lives, okay, because that's just stagnancy and you're not growing or changing, unless you're an NPC. You have the NPC people, okay, but they don't count. They're just kind of like the bots running the whole system and game. Is really what it is. Let's see what else were you guys saying up here. Okay, one of you guys asked how karma works. That's a great question, okay? So it's a few things, because you have like individual karma, okay, and then you also sometimes incarnate with generational karma, okay, in terms of like the actual generation that you're incarnating into, and then you also have the family karma as well sometimes as well, okay? So the way that I see karma is like, yes, it's cause and effect, but it's not always like, because usually when people think about karma and karmic relationships, they think like, oh, in a past life, this person did this to you, so you're going to come back and do it to them. That could be the case sometimes, yes, but sometimes it's not this, okay? So karmic situations, sometimes the way that I see it these days, again, are usually things pulling you down into your solar plexus. Interesting that I said solar plexus, but it's all your lower three chakras, okay? It's usually things that are pulling you down, and you'll only know that when you're operating out of your heart space, okay? So it's like, the way that I see it is like when you have a karmic situation, it's usually something that you may have had to have mastered or are supposed to master already. Let's say operating, again, out of the lower three chakras. So again, maybe something to do with money, finances, maybe something to do with self-worth, maybe something to do with validation. Maybe it is something to do with abandonment. Do you know what I mean? So sometimes a karmic quote unquote relationship pops up into your life to, let's say if you've cleared this, is going to kind of test you to see, have you cleared it really, okay? And you'll be able to tell, because usually karmic like dynamics feel kind of energetically dense, okay? So that's the way that I see karma. And again, karma Saturn, right? So it's like, and it's so interesting because before I knew as much about astrology that I do today, I was talking about this more so in karmic terms. I have to find that post because it was on my Instagram, but it's archived, okay? But I was talking about this, about how like, it's so interesting, like, just life is just interesting, because I was basically saying how like you deal with all of these karmic things and you don't fully have free will because you're operating out of your lower wounding, right? And it's so interesting because these days I see this as the Saturnian grid, okay? Because again, Saturn is karma, okay? So it's like, again, when you're operating out of your lower chakras, you're operating out of your wounding, aka your programming, aka not your heart space. When you're operating out of your heart space, again, you're outside, okay? So that's kind of what everyone is meant to, or at least wants to, okay, if you so choose to access, okay, the heart space and above. Because it's like, I know people talk about karma and like the wheel of karma, but it's like at some point in time, you have to have the awareness that it's like, you know what it is. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you don't have to engage with these situations anymore. I hope that makes sense. And you kind of operate outside of it, but it takes a lot of work to untangle yourself from that, okay? So it's this. So I know people talk about contracts and all these things in the new age, but like these days, I'm just like very weary about that, because it's just like contracts and all these things are very much like an earthly thing, okay? It's very much like an earthly concept to talk about contracts, and like they talk about soul contracts and all these things. Like I can see it sometimes psychically for people, like how the energy is being balanced between, you know, individuals. But it's like, again, it's while you're operating underneath Saturn or like the karmic structure, whatever it is. Okay, some people are going to call it different things. Okay, some people are going to call it the reincarnation loop and so on and so forth. But it's basically the same concept. There's something here that's energetically gritting the earth, and like when people are trying to exit the realm, you kind of hit that thing, and whatever is there, sometimes people are going to say it's their loved ones, sometimes people are going to say it's like entities or angels. They're going to be like, oh, but in grade 1 you didn't want to share your pencil with Billy, and now Billy's like upset about that, and you're like, oh, let me go back and play out the karma again. Do you know what I mean? So sometimes you just have to have the awareness that you're like, okay, I'm done, okay? It's like, I didn't know any better, you know what I mean? Especially when you're younger and you're like wilding out, you're like, okay, maybe you didn't know any better. Again, you're like full blown in the lower chakras, which everybody is, right? But it's like, again, I think it's like a loop. Do you know what I mean? Like they kind of try to keep people on thinking about karma, so on and so forth. I just feel like when you basically like transcend it or kind of elevate out of whatever's going on in your lower 3 chakras and you're actually operating out of the heart space, you don't have to worry about this anymore. But if you're doing shady things, if you're lying, again, those are all lower chakra things, so they're all connected to survival, okay? Anytime someone's being deceptive or shady, you're gonna get quote unquote karma for that, okay? Or like, Saturn's gonna get you. I was just explaining this to someone today. Like the way Saturn operates, I know people fear Saturn, but it's like, again, under the Saturnian structure, the harder you work towards something, Saturn rewards you, right? But if you're doing shady things, Saturn gets you too, okay? And that's what I mean by the eyes and so on and so forth that's the astral realm, okay? And one of you guys was talking about the psychedelics, and that's like my question, because I feel like sometimes when people like do psychedelics, they're still looking at the realms within the realm, okay? My question is how many people are actually exiting the realm? Because you have to actually operate out of the heart space for that. So I really, really hope that makes sense. Hey, Angela. You said, what is love? I love that you're asking that because I was just explaining. See, everything that I'm explaining to people in my head during the day, you guys ask in the live, okay? So I was basically saying in my mind, and even just yesterday, just in general, I've been talking about this topic in my mind. And basically what I was saying in my mind was that most people think that codependency is love, okay? I think that's where people blur the lines, okay? Love, in my own opinion, is a frequency that you're at, okay, in terms of your being, okay? You are love, right? And that's what I mean by like earlier when I was saying it's not about falling in love, okay? Usually when people are quote unquote falling in love, you're falling into some kind of trickery, okay? Is really what it is. You have to learn that you are love, okay? Because when you sometimes vibrate out of that love frequency, sometimes you have to have strong boundaries. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you walk away from situations, and that's all still love because you love yourself, okay? Most people now are looking at love through the lens of codependency is really what it is, that you need to be with another person and that only another person can activate this within you, okay? So it's all connected to like your life force energy and so on and so forth. So a lot of people who operate out of, let's say, the solar plexus and lower, okay, when it comes to relationships, a lot of people, and this is what I mean, you have to master your wounding, okay, or your soft spots, because usually people hook into whatever's going on within you, okay, to kind of keep you around energetically so they can siphon off of you. I hope that makes sense. You said, do I think enough people will awaken or that will be destroyed by a cataclysmic event? That's so interesting. It's so interesting because so many people have been talking about this event like from the past recently that I've been speaking to. Like someone was basically saying that, there was an event before and everything was gone. And then we kind of like started. Here is the thing. A lot of people talk about like the reset, that we kind of go through that like through every like cycle that an reset takes place. Okay. So that's the thing, it's hard to say because sometimes when I look at the collective, I'm like, is the collective really waking up or is it just a select group of people? And maybe like we're coming in to save the select group of people to get out, okay? Because sometimes like I go back and forth with that belief, you know what I mean? Like what I think about, sometimes like, oh, everyone's gonna wake up. Other times I'm like, this airplane is such a lost cause. It's just like the select group that we're kind of trying to gather so we can exit, okay, the realm, and the rest of them. Because the thing is, different people are at different levels of consciousness and some people won't ever wake up and they're gonna have to play out, okay, all of these stories that I'm talking about because they're not there yet, okay? But every person has a choice point is really what it is, what I've noticed, okay? To either awaken or to get to that level, okay, because it's the inner work that you have to do, or they don't, or they kind of stay in the lower, again, chakras. And those people, it's like they're gonna have to play that out somewhere. Do you know what I mean? So sometimes I think that the whole thing here is to not reincarnate again, to be honest with you guys, like collect all the people that are down here, okay, and to figure out how to exit the realm to not come back in again and allow the rest of them to kind of like play out whatever they're playing out. So it's hard to say like what's going to happen. I know a lot of people talk about an event and so on and so forth. People are waking up, like that's true more than ever before, like that's there, but is it going to be everybody? Okay, that's the question. I don't know. I don't really know. Sometimes these days, again, I think about, it's like the airplane just seems like a lost cause and, people are so in their lower chakras that it's like you kind of have to leave them there. And again, the people who are aware figure out how to exit. That's how I see it these days. I'm so glad that it's resonating. You said you've also heard that Mother Nature will soon not allow people of a low frequency to inhabit Earth or to inhabit the Earth. Yeah, I've heard about that too, about the frequency raising. You said, how long does the healing journey last? I mean, it's up to you. The thing is, I think you just have to come to the awareness of like what's going on within you. Does that make sense? It's like, you go through events and you have to go through the healing, because the thing is the healing also deals with grieving, and sometimes you're also grieving a dream or an illusion or a delusion or something that didn't take place. You know what I mean? Because the thing is, when you're in a grief energy, it's like you don't ever fully get over the grief. Do you know what I mean? For example, like people, let's say, who were potentially parentified when they were kids, they still didn't have a childhood, right? They might go into their inner child later on in life to heal that, but it's like you still didn't have that time. Do you know what I mean? So it's like there's the grief element connected to it, but you also kind of have to have the acceptance that took place. So that's kind of like for any event that takes place for people is really what it is. And I do think that after you transmute the energy within, you release it, okay? And then you kind of connect to some sort of higher maybe purpose or mission or so on and so forth. And you have to have the awareness, okay, of what's going on in your lower chakras. Because again, you'll see this in your natal charts, you guys, that it's like, again, you might always have the same type of person or character coming into your life, okay? Because it's playing out because of your natal chart. It's not even anything that you're doing. This is what I mean by like when people talk about like, oh, that person manifested that situation. It's like, it's not always that someone's manifesting something. Do you know what I mean? Because this earth plane also deals with a lot of like, it's a spiritual WAR. So there's a lot of targeting energetically that takes place to higher vibrational souls. So it's like, how are you manifesting that? You're not manifesting that. It's just like, you're trying to elevate basically, and people are trying to pull you down and keep you bound, okay? Because it's connected to energetic binding to this earth plane, which is then connected to quote unquote being food for the darker energies that can't manifest on their own, okay? Allegedly, in my own opinion. So it's a lot of coming into your power, and it's like, I wouldn't put a time on it because it's hard to say, because it's like, will you ever fully be healed, Or is it you have the awareness of what's going on in your lower chakras and you don't entertain those types of situations anymore, and you have to go through the grieving process and let it go, okay? And then you kind of go into the heart space and above. That's kind of how I see it, okay? I hope that makes sense. One of you guys are saying the earth plane is the Matrix. Absolutely. It is. It is down here, you guys. It's intense, but it's just like at the same time, I think it's also like our perception. Like, it's like, again, it's acceptance. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes it's a matter of accepting it and being like, this is just how it is. How are you going to fit into the energy? Do you know what I mean? Like, again, my philosophy is just have fun, do what you like, okay? And pick yourself always, okay? Is really, really what it is. And you're never going to regret choosing yourself in any situation, okay? And sometimes I know people talk about like what is it called? Like the sunken cost fallacy, or sometimes when you've invested a lot of time into something. This is why you can't operate out of the ego, okay? You can't create an identity over external things. You still have to know who you are, even if you've been, let's say, in a relationship or a job for like 10, 15 years. You have to be okay with leaving, okay? If it's not serving you anymore. Because at the end of the day, you guys have to understand that these things are just like comforts, okay? Is really what it is. It turns into a comfort thing after a while. And it's like, why then do you need that comfort in your life? Like, why does it need to be an external thing that creates or brings you comfort, And then nothing grows in there. You're welcome. Yeah, grieving is a big part of the journey. I'll tell you guys that much. But you also don't want to be stuck in that either, okay? So again, sometimes it's like important to understand that sometimes you just won't get over things. Do you know what I mean? Again, maybe an experience happened, or maybe an experience didn't happen, or maybe you missed the boat on something or whatever. The example that I gave you guys earlier, sometimes you have to come to terms with that, okay? But most people, in my opinion, I was just talking about this with someone yesterday too, most people don't want to take accountability or responsibility. That's one of the first things. But the other thing is like they don't understand actually what's happening down here, okay? It's like a lot of things do get projected onto people, whether it's through the system, whether it's through the family, whether it's through, again, societal beliefs and so on and so forth. And that's why you have to get in tune with your heart space and kind of like be firm and strong in that. You said 12th house here, you were heavily involved in organized religion. There it is. It took some time to reprogram. There you go. You learned to honor your power. I love that. Yeah, it's very common for 12 housers. Oh my goodness. I pressed this green screen again. Okay, it's off now. Let's see what you guys saying up here. You said, do I think, oh yeah, I already answered that. Let's see, what else were you guys saying up here? Oh my goodness, I keep pressing it. You said numerology, astrology, binary coding, and genetic coding, it's all interconnected. Yeah, so that like begs the question, right? What's actually happening down here? Are we actually in some sort of game or simulation if all these things are working? Is that what's happening? That's my question. You said, so could having more energy beyond Saturn a sign that we won't reincarnate here much or at all anymore? I just think it can be a decision. At this point in time, I think you can decide. That's the way that I see it. Like, you have to not play into the lower chakra things, and I think you have to have the awareness and the decision. Does that make sense? So it's like, and forgiveness. That's something that the religions were right about when they talked about the forgiveness, okay? Because it's like, yes, maybe you're forgiving the other person, but you have to also forgive yourself. And the thing is too, the other trick, you guys, is to not create more karma with people, okay? And sometimes you create more karma, again, out of the shadow behavior and out of the wounding with individuals, you know what I mean? So it's like, I do truly believe that no one's like meant to purposefully be somebody's karma. Does that make sense? Like to the point where you go out of your way to either like hurt someone or get back at someone or whatever. Okay, because honestly, I do genuinely believe that when people do shady things, that God or source or the creator, like whatever way, shape, form you guys want to look at it, like I do believe that they, whoever it is, okay, God, source or the creator, have the perfect timing to get that person in the exact spot. Like that, this is what I mean why like you're not meant to be someone's karma, because it's like no matter what you do, it's like God, source or the creator, like whoever is kind of looking in terms of like getting the karma for that person will get the person like in a certain position or place in their life where again it's like it kind of hits them right where it's like gonna leave an imprint. You know what I mean? And this is for shady people, of course, okay? So that's the way that I see it. He's like, keep listening to the intuition, especially with the water energy. Exactly. I'm just back at the top here. I'm just seeing what you guys were saying. Just keep swimming. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. A lot of people talk about Lucifer being like the light or whatever, and people like talk about like going toward the light and so on and so forth. So just something interesting to think about. You said, why does the moon feel chaotic? Most full moons do. You're not sure what's the moon's energy. Is it in Sag? Sag can be very chaotic, the fire signs. You said you love that I say shadow patriarchy. Do I have videos on this? You love to watch videos of me explaining this more. Oh, yes, I can do some more videos. You don't have threads. Yes, just YouTube. So yeah, I talk about this on my threads, but again, I slip it in here and there. It's not a real patriarchy, you guys, because the people who are at the top allegedly like, okay, a real patriarchy would literally be the masculine protecting and actually providing, right? But there's none of that that's actually taking place. I mean, maybe there's a little bit of providing here and there, but it's like when you look at the people who are at the top, okay, in like the patriarch positions, okay, what are they doing? They're creating WARs, which are then doing what? Harming women and children. That's not a real patriarchy, that's a shadow patriarchy. That's shadow masculine energy. It's inverted, okay? So everything down here is inverted. So it's a shadow patriarchy. That's the way that I see it, again, in my own opinion. You said you feel like you use all your energy on random tasks, not on what's fulfilling. Julia, way back, if you're still in the room, that's that Gemini, the Mars and Gemini. Mars and Gemini kind of like is scattered. You have to kind of pick one thing and kind of try to focus on the one thing. You said, hi, Barbara. Hi, Nicole. How are you doing? You said, speaking of wounding, any insight on Lilith in the 8th house? So interesting. Somebody asked me about that earlier as well. Lilith in the 8th house is... it can be like the dark side of sexuality or like sexual fantasy. Sometimes it can go into like occult, like the dark part of the occult as well. And then Lilith in Aquarius is like really rebelling in this. So you kind of have to integrate the dark side of the self, okay, is really, really what it is. I do readings. Yes, I do readings. I do natal chart readings, synastry readings. I do progress natal chart readings and mini natal chart readings. Send me an email, you guys. How do you recognize the NPCs of the world? A lot of them are glitching. I'm noticing, and even one of my friends is noticing too. There's like less of them. For example, like back in the day when I would be able to call like an Uber or like a Lyft very quickly, they take so long to come now. And I've noticed a lot of tech is glitching and like the maps are glitching. It's really interesting if you're actually paying attention. So yeah, the NPCs are kind of like those types of individuals. Not everyone who does these jobs is an NPC. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like, you can kind of tell like they're empty. There's nothing going on there. They're kind of like robotic. They're in like autopilot, you know? Those are like the NPCs. They're not really operating out of anything, really. They're just kind of like there to like run the game, essentially. They're like on a loop, okay? Energetically. Oh, I'm so glad that resonated. I felt like that was going to resonate with someone. Great goddess, gratitude guide. I like that name. You said it's a comfy position, but energy vampire. Exactly. That's how you guys know. As soon as something starts getting toxic, anything, okay? Because everything has an expiration date and is meant to end. But again, people, this is lower chakra things. People want to hold on for dear life because it gives you a sense of control, but there's no control, okay? Really, down here in this earth plane, okay? So when something starts to get toxic, it's done, okay? So that could be a relationship, that can be a friendship, that can be a job, a work environment, a living space. You'll feel the energy, okay? And then you'll start getting drained because you're not meant to be there anymore, okay? You're kind of like working energetically overtime trying to be there, essentially, okay? You said when you forgave yourself, you stopped being fearful in life. Good. You said the stars keep a record of everything, so that's how karma is dispensed. Yes, but that's again within the realm down here, okay? There's a picture, you guys. I shared it on my threads, but I've shared it in I've shared it maybe under the comment, or not the comments, like the posts that I write on here. I shared it under, I think, one of the videos that I did recently. So the snippets of the videos where I talked about Saturn operating everything down here. And then I shared that same image in my How Astrology Works video, okay? Basically, the way the video or the picture is, it's like a person, okay? And you know what's interesting? I found this picture when I was looking up astral realm. I typed in astral realm and then the picture popped up, which is so interesting because that again shows you the astral realm as part of this like construct here, okay? So within the picture, there's like this curve, which is the structure that I tell you guys about, the energetic structure that's around the earth plane. And underneath the curve, there's like all these stars, which goes to show you that astrology is operating within this realm only, okay? And that's why it's accurate. And then there's a person that's like reaching outside, okay? And outside of this curve, okay, is like, you know, like it's like rainbows and like nice and like fun and whatever. And inside it's like, you know, whatever we see today, right? So that's another confirmation. I saw that picture first and then I kind of came to that conclusion after too, because it's like the planets to me are like energetic, like they're all grids around the earth plane, but for whatever reason, they worship Saturn the most, okay? So that's kind of how everything operates, okay? So it's this, so you want to learn how to operate outside of that thing is really, really what it is. So the stars and everything, it's underneath, okay? It's underneath this, and you want to operate outside of the grid, okay? Is really what it is. So that's why you need to understand, okay? That's why you need to understand that this is basically taking place down here, okay? That's the game. It's a game, essentially. Yeah, some of you guys, yes, basically you're saying the FIRMAMENT, but I think, again, people think that that's physical. Like I think they think it's a physical thing around the earth. My theory is that it's energetic, okay? It's some sort of energetic thing or grid or whatever. It's something energetic that's holding everything in place, okay? So it's interesting because a lot of ancient cultures, religions, again, talk about this thing, okay? So it's just like really interesting to witness. You said Libra, Pisces, dominant chart. You feel like if you leave, you will stuck in another abusive relationship eventually. Can you use astrology to learn more about your partner and kind of manipulate day-to-day relationship? Okay, Tiffany, maybe send me an email too if you need assistance. But what I will say also, okay, is here is the thing. The way the relationship is now, it's probably going to be hard to change that into something different, okay? So I feel like, I know you've asked me this a few times, but if it's possible for you to leave completely, and again, you need to see and explore what's holding you there in this relationship, okay? Sometimes it's a trauma bond, I understand, but you have to kind of go deeper and be like, what is it that's holding you and that has you attached to this person? Is it because of time passes? Is it because of finances? Is it because you think that you won't find anybody else? Like now you're saying you feel like you might find another abusive relationship. Then why do you have to be in another relationship? Maybe you need to have a period of time because being a Pisces dominant, you're Libra and Pisces dominant, okay? So Libra's looking for love, so is Pisces, okay? It's Venus and Neptune. So it's like, I kind of feel like this person, everything that I said in the earlier part of this live, when someone hooks into your wound and sells you a dream, I feel like that's what this person did, unfortunately, okay? And it's really, again, this is my own opinion, okay? So I feel like that's kind of what they did, and they kind of hooked into that for you. And I feel like they kind of keep pulling that carrot or like dangling it in front of you. And it's just like you're aware, right? And I told you even in the last live, sometimes what I've learned even like from people talking is like, sometimes it takes up to 7 times to leave an abusive relationship, okay? So you have to see what is it that's keeping you there. Sometimes, again, there's the fear of being alone with Libra, okay? Or again, Pisces, like dreaming of this love story, or like hooking into who they could be, hoping that they could get there, thinking that you could heal them, right? But sometimes this energy, and this is for everybody, you have to accept the person at face value, okay? And that's what Pisces 12 house Neptune struggles with down here, okay? Is really what it is. I bet you anything, if you are able to break free from that, spend the time being uncomfortable by being alone and away from them and not go back to them. And after you get over that hump, then you'll be in the freedom territory energetically, okay? But it'll take some time is really what it is. I feel like that's a huge thing for you to break free from in this lifetime. Psychically, I'm actually seeing this person has actually energetically been following you for multiple lifetimes too. You're actually meant to break free from this, okay? If you so choose to in this lifetime. You said, what about Lilith in the 5th house of Pisces? Okay, so the dark side here, Lilith in Pisces is interesting because out of all the signs, everyone says Scorpio is hypersexual. I find Pisces in the shadow can be one of the more hypersexual signs, okay? But of course, all the signs can be, but Pisces, because it's like no boundaries, and then you have it in Lilith, like this energy is like literally no boundaries when it comes to sexuality sometimes, okay? So it could be this. Also within Pisces, like the dark side of this could be like a cult leader. Speaking of cult leaders, it could be, let's say, someone who uses like spirituality to manipulate, okay? It could be this. It could be, let's say, like, again, you know those like tarot readers or psychics or whatever that are like, oh, this is happening to this person in your life and you have to buy this $1,000 candle, you know, to make sure that it doesn't happen. That's that Lilith and Pisces energy in the shadow. Not saying it's you, but it could manifest in this way, okay? And then Lilith in the 5th house could be sometimes a fear of rejection or sometimes looking for attention, okay? Drama, all these things. So that's that. Exactly. I like what you said, Infinite Libra. It is possible to break free and it's uncomfortable, but then you will be so free and liberated. Exactly. And then, oh my God, interesting. You're a Libra, Sun, Pisces rising. You understand. Exactly. Okay. So it's hard at first, okay, because it's like, again, you know, what happens in these dynamics, and it's interesting. I was mentioning this either earlier or like in the earlier live that I did, but like what happens in these dynamics is these people, because one of you guys was asking about, because I spoke about the romance scam on my threads, and then one of you guys was asking about that. Basically what happens is like sometimes people sell you a dream and then they fake their personality to get with you, okay? And then it's like, you know, that's what you hook into. You hook into that version and then the mask falls, okay? And then it's like they're not who they presented themselves to be. So now you are in this cognitive dissonance state, okay? And that's why it's hard to leave sometimes, because it's like you're trying to get that other version of them, or sometimes they play these games with you where like they give you a second or like a glimpse of that version, okay? And then they pull it away again, and then they go into their dark version. Like it's unintegrated. Like these people are unintegrated. They're not integrated in their shadows. And sometimes you have to understand that either they fake their personality or they're so fragmented, okay, internally, that it's like you have to take them for who they are when they are operating out of the shadow energy, right? Because they have to integrate the shadow version of the self, is just what it is. And there's nothing really that you could do to help them with that unless they want to do that, right? Being a Pisces energy, healing energy, right? Probably you want to assist them with this, but it's an energy siphon and it's wasting your time, okay? There's probably other things that you're meant to do down here on this earth plane that this person is interfering with, okay? And that goes for anybody who is in these types of situations. So you're in a cognitive dissonance state, okay? And I guess that's also maybe, again, I'm not a psychologist, but probably connected to trauma bonds and so on and so forth, maybe when they explain this, okay? And maybe also, Tiffany, look up narcissists, okay? Look up narcissists, look up shared fantasy, okay, with narcissists. What else? They also talk about sometimes mortification, okay, when it comes to narcissists and narcissism and all these things, okay? Kind of how they suck you into their world because of the quote-unquote shared fantasy. I'm sure there's people who explain this way better, okay? But then it's like when the quote-unquote fantasy is done, they like start to devalue you and discard you, and that's probably when the abusive type of situation starts to take place, but you're still holding out for who they were, right? But that's maybe not who they are anymore. So it's a struggle, but I have the faith that you will get there. You're welcome. I definitely have the faith that you will get there. It's going to take some time, but I'm sure it's on your mind already. So it's just like, remember how I said it's like up to 7 times, like it's a process. It's a whole process, because you have to like, again, understand. Like I think a lot of the time people are in these situations because they're not understanding what's happening, right? Sometimes these terms might help you, right? Codependency, narcissism, all these things that I mentioned, right? Learning about it and reading about it, okay? The cognitive dissonance, the trauma bond, like again, trying to like rectify or like understand what's happening, right? Because when you're in that cognitive dissonance state, which I feel like a lot of people are, in these types of dynamics, in most relationships, in my own opinion, okay, again, the lower chakra relationships, it's like, again, it's hard to wrap your mind around it, okay? If you don't understand what's happening, then you kind of go into this like, almost like, it turns into this like, almost like, it's like the shadow of the crown when you're in the cognitive dissonance. Do you know what I mean? It's like, almost like this like, I don't want to say zombie-like, but it's like the state is like you're not even, like it's the Neptunian fog, first of all, but it's like you're not really operating out of your own self, is really what it is. Yeah, narcissists don't change. They don't change. They don't change. It's not you. It's just like, I think it's the cognitive dissonance that like is confusing you. Anybody who's in these stages or states, okay? That's what they do. They create the cognitive dissonance. Sometimes people do that through lying so much too, and you're always trying to like rationalize like what's going on. But sometimes some people, especially when they're narcissists or like operating out of like, again, the narcissistic tendencies, like there is no rationale with them. One morning they feel like this, one day they feel like that, and it's just like, you don't know what's going on, you know? Yeah, exactly. One of you guys said it's not even you. That's the part that's hard to awaken to. Fragmented people fragment people. Exactly. And unfortunately, a lot of the time, people who again, have a lot of high vibrational energy. Or again, the Pisces, you know, the 12th house, the Neptune, like again, sometimes even Scorpionic people, absolutely. But it's just like, again, a lot of the time people have high vibrational energy, get energetically targeted because it's going to throw you off your path. Keep that in mind. So that has to be like stronger within you, you know, to understand that this person is in one way, shape, or form throwing you off your path. You said it's like getting a high from that first drug or from a drug. Exactly. The first high from a drug never can duplicate it. It's hard to break free from the spell. Exactly. And it's a spell. The Neptunian fog. You said even when they mask it. Exactly. I'm glad you said that you're going to watch my live stream more often, and that makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much. I think so too. So I'm glad that you're here. Thank you for the kind words. I'm glad that it resonates. The green screen agrees as well. Let's see what else were you guys saying in here. You said, hi, Barbara, what does this placement struggle with Saturn and Scorpio in the 7th house? Relationships, okay? Saturn and Scorpio could be intimacy, okay? So it could be like literal emotional intimacy and vulnerability, or it could be, let's say, like sexual intimacy as well, okay? Saturn and Scorpio, like I can see that energy manifesting into like just restrictions around their sexuality, intimacy, all these things, okay? So it doesn't just have to be sexuality, but it could also be like intimacy in terms of like feelings and emotions and sharing emotions. And then you have it, and that's the subset of your generation as well, okay? So that's generational, the Scorpio, and then the 7th house is in your chart, okay? So the 7th house Saturn is going to restrict you in relationships, okay? So I'm curious to know, were you in a long-term relationship before your first Saturn return, okay, which would be around age 27 to 30 or 28 to 31. Maybe you went through a separation or a divorce around that time. And then maybe even around your second Saturn return, because if you're Saturn in Scorpio, I'm trying to think now what generation you could be a part of. But yes, even if you maybe are, let's say, in a marriage or a relationship, maybe around the second Saturn return, you could also potentially go through a breakup or divorce, because going out of Saturn in the 7th and then Saturn into the 8th brings that divorce or separation energy, okay? It could also be marriage though, by the way, you guys, like Saturn in the 7th going into Saturn in the 8th, because it's like you could start a relationship and then going into the Saturn in the 8th transit could be merging finances and assets, okay, which could be marriage. Or if you're in a marriage, it could be divorce. So it's this. You said I did that one already. What else are you guys saying? I'm glad that it's resonating. You have Lilith in the 10th house in Leo. So hard with career smearing, but now you're free because you started your own business. Good. That's that 10th house energy. And Leo, are you doing something creative? What are you doing for work? I'm curious to know. Lilith in the 9th, that could also be that cult leader energy. It could also be sometimes like that overly preachy energy, the Lilith in the 9th. Like that could literally be someone who like motivates people to, again, whether it's a cult or like, it could be a business, like in the positive version, it could be like a business person. You know how you're like motivating people to like buy your product and this is the best product ever, right? So that could also manifest in that way as well. You said manifesting community and tarot messed you up. Yeah, that's what I mean, you guys. Okay, great goddess, great goodness, goddess, gratitude guide. I love that. And by the way, I love that you picked the letter G, okay? Because that's a good number. Or letter, that's a good number. Anyways, what I was gonna say was my website is iambarbarajosic.com. You can find it either in the description of this video or any of my videos. You'll find it in the description box below, or you can go under my About Me section and find it there, okay? You can select which reading you guys would like. An email window should pop up, you guys, okay? When you select the reading, send me an email and then we'll go from there. I'll give you guys the information for like payment and all of that, okay? When you guys send me the email. So it's this, and yes, Infinite Zebra, the tarot community, that's another shadow and that's another siphon on the feminine energy, okay? I wanted to make a video about that as well, because at this point in time, like everyone's trying to get their bag, which I understand, but it's like, you have to see like, where are these people coming from? Because it's like, now everyone's doing it, and it's like sometimes people are just like saying whatever, like they're also feeding you a dream. That's kind of what I'm getting to as well, okay? Some of them, they're like feeding off of people's wounds and so on and so forth to make money is really what it is, which again, I understand it's the structure in the world and people are trying to get their bag, but it's just like sometimes it's just too much, because it's like I have people popping up on my feed that used to pop up on my feed maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and they're still being like, divine union is coming. Like, what divine union? It's been 4 to 5, some people 10 years, some people 12 years. Like, what is happening? You know, it's like, no, the divine union is within the self. It's like everyone's always externalizing their power, and it's again a siphon on the feminine energy, because the feminine energy, and again, this is regardless of gender, you guys, is within, is going to break down the energetic structure. That's what's supposed to happen energetically, okay? The feminine needs to come into their power is basically what it is, okay? And then when the feminine is in their power, then they activate the masculine, but we're not there yet, okay? But yes, so that's another siphon on the feminine energy, okay, is like the readings always, and again, the love readings, and this, and divine union, and they're always changing the name. It's like, once it was soulmate, then it was twin flame. Now people are saying special person. It's just like, you guys, okay? I understand that everyone wants love and connection. Like, I get it, right? But it's like, it's almost like the energy behind it. It's like a desperate energy is really, really what it is. And that's just like throwing people off their path. I'm always going to say that, okay? Exactly. You said no divine union unless you are in union with the self. Exactly. I'm glad that you resonate. Tiffany, I don't look at death in a natal chart. You said early death indicator. Yeah, I don't look at that. I mean, I've seen people talk about what could be death indicators in a natal chart, but I don't look at that, you know? You said it's gross. You said a lot of people are joining the bandwagon to make lots of money. Exactly. You got to be careful who you get information from. All of that. You have to be careful for everything, because you guys, you're always absorbing the energy, okay? From whoever you're watching or listening to. So it's like people are putting their energy into that thing. Like, I think about that even about art sometimes. Have you guys noticed, like, these days, especially when people make art, to me it's like very dark sometimes. Like, I feel like people are literally channeling their demons and putting it into like their art pieces. I'm like, what is happening? Like, something like intense and dark. So really, really interesting. But yes, anything that you guys are like receiving, right? Even if you go to an energy clearing or healing, like, it depends whether the person is a vibrational match. Because the thing is, ultimately, you guys, like, you have to be able to do that for yourselves. Like, other people can assist you. Again, they can plant seeds, they can give you ideas, but nobody can do it for you. This is the whole thing to understand. So sometimes when you go to, like, let's say an energy clearing session, sometimes that person can transfer energy onto you, okay? I learned that once a long time ago. And then since then, I always say it in my mind, and I put like an energetic shield around me to only, let's say, like, I don't really go to these things as much anymore. But after I learned that you can like actually like receive energy from another person, like they can transfer onto you. After that, I was kind of like, okay, in my mind, I would be like, okay, like make sure that I'm only getting what I meant to what I meant to receive, that there isn't any like energetic transference, okay? So it's this, because you don't know what's going on with their energy fields. And that's for everything, even like the whole, like, you know, like listening to the beats on here, or like the whatever 432 hertz or whatever the hertz are. I think it's 432, but whatever, like the high vibrational hertz. Even those, so interesting, like even those I became skeptical about. And then someone recently on my feed popped up, and I didn't save it, or maybe I saved the video, but I didn't save the app. There's an app that you can go on to see, are those like frequencies actually like the, you know, 432 and so on and so forth, because I notice all these things through how I feel in my body after I do them. Do you know what I mean? But the only way you'll know is if you know your own energy, and then how do you feel after? So it's this. You said there are people charging $300 to take out people's chakras over the phone. In my opinion, those are all scams. There's just people trying to make money is really what it is. Like, it's opportunists, which is like, again, I understand it's a narcissistic plane and people have to make money to survive. But in my opinion, it's like, if you're gonna involve yourself in narcissistic types of like, you know, trying to take money from people, then go work on Wall Street. Like, why are you doing it in the healing community? Do you know what I mean? Because it's like, the way that I see it, people, when they come to the metaphysical world and like the healing world, it's because they've exhausted all their other options. You know what I mean? Like, nothing else worked for them. So I feel like these people are like the most vulnerable. So it's like, to like exploit them, it's like the worst thing you can do. It's like, then just go work like in stocks. You know what I mean? Where everyone's a sociopath. I'm not saying these people are all sociopaths, but I'm just saying, like, work in some sort of job where, you know, that's just the job, you know, where you're like stealing from people, you know, don't do it for like the vulnerable people. I don't know. I just feel like it's like a very bad, like, that's bad karma. Speaking of karma that you guys were talking about earlier. Okay, so this is another thing I want to tell you guys. Okay, you guys, all these things, you can actually accumulate negative karma, okay? So, and it's interesting because I used to do readings for people back in the day too. Like, I did, but it's like I stopped doing like those types of readings, like the tarot readings. I stopped doing tarot readings because I noticed most people that were going to the tarot readings or like coming, you know, we're just like coming from like a fear-based place. Like, even if you're watching readings all the time, it's like, you know, you're probably trying to control the future, but it's like, why are you trying to control the future is really what it is. Do you know what I mean? So I found that to be a theme. The next thing I found was a lot of the time people, especially if they're in the Neptunian fog or haze that I was speaking to you guys about earlier, especially when it comes to relationships, they're just like in it. You know what I mean? So because they're in it, they're not going to listen to anything else that you say. Even if you're like, drop that person, or this person's giving devil energy or whatever, they're not going to listen. So I was like, this is a waste of my time and it's a waste of my energy, because a lot of those people are going to people to confirm, right? Or like feed into what it is that they want, right? I actually had that happen recently with somebody that I know. Okay, so this person that I know was going to a psychic, and that psychic, like, whatever, I guess they liked what the psychic was saying. And then eventually when the psychic was kind of like, okay, like, you need to give it a rest kind of thing, the person, you know what they did? They were like, no, the psychic is bad now all of a sudden, and they went to go find another one that's gonna just like feed their delulu, you know, or just like feed whatever they're like thinking, you know. And it's just like people, like sometimes when they're really in it, especially when it's that strong Neptunian fog and haze, they can't see outside of it, and that's the struggle. So there's that. And by the way, this person that I'm telling you guys about also has a picture of the person that they want on their vision board. Like, you guys, that's another thing I want to tell you guys about. So doing those types of things, you're interfering with the person's free will, okay? And that's going to be bad karma to you. Do you know what I mean? So it's like anytime you do anything to do with like love spells or any sort of spells where you're trying to like interfere with a person's free will, that backfires on you guys, okay? So I hope you guys know all of this. Some people don't, especially if you're new to the world, but yeah. You said people are not ready to hear the truth. They're not, but I'm talking, so... So it's this, sometimes they don't want to hear it, but I like at this point in time, it's just like too much. Do you know what I mean? It's like, okay, like it's time to like see what's going on, you know? Thank you. I'm so glad that I resonate with you. First seed 1144. I like that number a lot, 1144. You said obsession is not love. It's not. And most people, I'm not sure why my phone keeps wilding out. See, this time I didn't press anything and the green screen came up. So I guess it's like agreeing with what I'm saying. But anyways, yes, you know, most people, again, and they're operating out of their wounding, and that's why certain people attract each other too, right? So this is what I mean. You have to be so aware of why you're doing what you're doing, okay? And it's like, if you're not making enough money doing metaphysical things or like readings, then you have to get another job. You know what I mean? Like at that point in time, like if you're doing these things and you need finances to survive, it's like, then why are you trying to like trick people into coming back to you? Like I knew someone, okay, so interesting. I think I told you guys the story like way back, but I used to do Reiki back in the day as well. And then I stopped doing that too. Anyways, so I used to do Reiki, and during that period of time, I had my mobile yoga studio. So I used to teach yoga, I used to do Reiki. You guys, I did so many things. I feel like I've lived like 50 different lives. But anyways, so I had my mobile yoga business, and then I somehow ended up aligning with like this space. Actually, it was somebody that I knew from another business that I had a few years ago. But anyways, I'm not gonna get into all of that because again, we would be here like literally like for 5 more hours. But anyways, so because I knew somebody, then what ended up happening was somehow I aligned. They were opening up a wellness space, and long story short, I ended up being like a contractor position type of thing where you could like run your own like Reiki business. And they had other like practitioners there. They had like a naturopath, they had a masseuse, or did they have a masseuse? I think they did. I think they had a masseuse, whatever, like all the healing wellness types of things, okay? And then I was doing Reiki out of there. So it was so interesting because we were like, oh, how are we gonna bring clients in? Okay, because I knew this person at this point, we were like friendly. And, you know, they're like, how, me and the person we're talking, we're like, oh, how are we going to bring clients in? And then somehow the idea came up of like me teaching classes. And that's how I actually fell in love with teaching. Okay. So that's part of the journey. But anyway, so I was like, oh, let me like teach classes. I'll do free classes. Okay. They'll come into the space. I'll do introduction to chakras. Okay. When was this, like 2018? I was like, let me do intro to chakras. And I did intro to chakras. That was one of my classes. I did a class about empaths back then too. And then I used to actually do full moon circles, but then I kind of go over the moon. So I don't do those, like I didn't do those anymore. Because basically what happened with the full moon circles, that's how I got into tarot. So in my full moon circles, I would pull cards for people. And then I was like, oh, like, you know, since I'm doing this, I might as well just put it online. And that's how my YouTube channel was born. Okay. It was actually from that whole process. But yeah, I got over the full moon and the moons and all that. So I stopped doing that. And then I still did my intro to chakras. So that was the main one. That was like the most popular one, was intro to chakras, okay? So long story short, through doing all these classes, and same thing, I was like, oh, if I'm teaching like chakras all the time, I was like, I might as well just put it online so I can just like redirect people to my page so I don't have to like do the same thing all the time. Do you know what I mean? Like say the same thing all the time. So it was fun while it lasted, I'll say that much. So during one of my classes, now I don't know which one of these classes it was, but during one of my classes, I would also make everyone sit on the ground. Like literally humbling everyone, take off their shoes and sit on the ground. It was like a smaller space, right? It was like in the like reception area, and then in like the back, there was like the rooms or whatever, okay? So where we would sit, it's like windows, okay? So I'm like starting, I think I was like getting started, or maybe I just started. There's like this person that's walking by, and I thought the person was coming to my class. Okay, I thought they kind of looked lost. So I'm like waving. I'm like, oh, hey, come in. Because like, this is where the class is. And then they come in, they weren't, but they ended up staying because whatever, it's like a free class. Long story short, this person ended up telling me, okay, because there was actually a psychic that was like a few doors down, was telling me how the psychic, they didn't directly say this. I'm saying this to you guys, that the psychic was like siphoning their energy. Basically like what the psychic was doing was like saying things to them to like keep them coming back. And this is what I mean by like using your gifts in a shadow sense. And that's what I mean. Like if what you're doing for work isn't making you money, then you need to get another job and then do that on the side. Do you know what I mean? So yes, that's my story about that. You said I asked what's the difference between an empath and a narcissist. What did I mean? Yes, on Threads, I talked about the difference between, or like the similarities. So empath, I called it high level empath and high level narcissist because there's levels to it, right? So the quote unquote high level empath and the high level narcissist, okay, basically are able to mirror people. So I was basically saying, what does that tell you guys? Because I want you guys to think about it yourselves when I post it on my threads. But kind of what I was getting at was they share a lot of things in common, okay? So in one way, shape, or form, obviously, like, they're not the same, but I just feel like a lot of the time someone who is a narcissist is someone who is deeply wounded and unhealed, and maybe at some point in time they did have like the empath energy to them. I'm not saying stay with the narcissist, you guys, okay? Do not get sucked into that. I'm just saying that they have a lot of traits in common because they're both very intuitive. They're both very good at reading people, empaths and narcissists, okay? All these things. So it's just like interesting to me that they share that in common. But I find that the empath a lot of the time is trying to like fix or heal the narcissist, but a lot of the time the narcissist is an opportunist. You said any advice for working with a narcissist? Can you leave the job? Do you have to work with them? If not, like trying to protect your energy so they don't siphon you, so they don't take advantage is pretty much all that you can do. You've been seeing numbers 4441 and 38 a lot lately. What do these numbers represent in terms of synchronicity? I would say see what you're thinking of during that time. For me, different numbers mean different things. Like I have my number that I see a lot of the time that I know I'm meant to be in that place at that time. Do you know what I mean? So you have to kind of see what it means for you. I know you can go on Google and type in angel numbers, but it's like they all mean the same thing after a while. All of them are gonna be like, you're on the right path. You're on the path to abundance and prosperity. Like it's like a variation of that. Do you know what I mean? So what my suggestion is, see what the number means for you. Okay, sometimes it's someone's birthday, so maybe you're thinking of that person. Maybe what you're thinking about them is being confirmed by seeing their birthday, okay? So it could be something like this. So you have to see what it means for you. I'm glad that you guys can keep up. Is that what 1144 is? Yeah, I'm glad that you're here for this. Heart chakra love. I'm so here for that. Yes, you can look up your natal chart on any page and then come back here and see what your natal chart tells you, and then I can answer your questions for one of you guys that's asking with like the birth information in there. I do have a lot of information, but I don't have like the whole system of astrology in terms of everyone's like doing the combinations in my mind. So you can look it up online and then come back here with your questions. He said Libra sun and ascendant, Libra 12th house stellium, and your adult son Cancer with autism is aggressive, and hurts himself and others. What karma is this? Sorry to hear that, first of all. I'm curious to know, like, is he having a hard time regulating his emotions or something? Like, that kind of feels like he's like acting out something that he's like frustrated with the aggression. Sun in Cancer. I'm curious to know what's going on, because one of the first things I thought of was what's going on with his Mercury. Does he have Mercury Neptune? Mercury Uranus? Let me know if you're still in the room. Oh, you are able to see the threads. Thanks, Clarice. So Clarice is basically saying you can look up my threads without actually having threads. Yes, check it out, but like be prepared, okay? Because you know it might take some time to process like and integrate what I say on there, because it can be a little bit intense sometimes. But it is what it is. Sometimes it has to be said. You know, at this point in time, I'm just kind of like over everyone living in like the Piscean, like Neptunian delusion is really what it is. I'm just like done. So it's time to like break free from that for everybody. You know, it's gonna be better for everybody. It's one of those things where it's like the truth is gonna upset you, but it'll set you free. You know. Obviously you have to go through the grieving, like that's always there. You have to go through the whole grieving process. But yeah, you said, did I ever struggle with clients trying to grab onto and drain my energy? You talk about deep stuff on your channel. A lot of people who watch you feel like they know you and try to attach a lot. Interesting. No, I haven't had that. I haven't had that really. I find that the people, like just in my own opinion, that try to drain you the most or lash on the most are usually people who are in your inner circle or people who are around you is really what it is. People that you don't really know. Like you have to cleanse and close the session. But yeah, there's probably a leakage there or something where you're connecting, like you're leaving your energy field open too much. Does that make sense? You said you just remembered my video about Saturn, which is your life purpose. Fixing Saturn placement is fixing your life. Exactly, it is. Usually you guys, if you have, so for you guys to know, like you guys can look at it as like the MATRIX like targets you. You can see if you have Saturn aspects, okay, like to your personal placements. That's usually gonna be your point of contention, okay? If you have Saturn aspecting your Mars or your Venus, you know, like your internal placements, that's usually gonna be your struggle. Or like, you know, when everything's going great, that's where that mosquito is gonna come and poke at you. the astral mosquito. You said, are there placements that can determine if a person is prone to violence? Yes, Mars, Pluto. Okay, so if you have Mars, Pluto aspects in your chart, so usually like the more hard, like the hard aspects, okay, not so much. Sometimes also I will say the trine and the sextile, but you might not feel it as much. Like with the trine and the sextile, it could kind of fade a little bit more into the background, but especially if you have the square, if you have the conjunction, even the opposition, you're prone to violence from other people towards you, or okay, you then become prone to violence toward other people as well. Okay. Yay, I'm glad. Yes, definitely check out my threads, you guys. You said, when did I first wake up from the Matrix? You said 2011, and then 2014 was your test. The first time was 2012 for me, when the world didn't end. Now these days, I'm always seeing on the clock app, it's like, oh, the world is ending on this day. The world is ending on that day. I'm like, can we get there already? It's been ending since 2012. Since December 21st, 2012, the world has been ending. Like every year there's like a new date. So I see a lot of people like, this is what I mean. Like the collective has to wake up from this. Okay. Anytime someone gives you a date, it's probably not going to happen. So that was like the beginning of my awakening. I was like, oh, the world didn't end. Like me and my friends were prepared, you guys. Like, and I was young then too. Okay. So December 21st, 2012, I was like, okay, like the world is going to end, it's going to be done. But also there was 1999 too, with like the computer not being able to read the 2 or whatever, even though it's like all in binary code. So they're always trying to say the world is ending is really what it is. So that's when I had my first awakening. Okay. But then obviously since then it's been layers. Every time you learn a truth or you break free from a belief systems, you go through another awakening. Okay. Because you have to go through the whole process again. Okay. Grieving, you know, coming out of the shock and so on and so forth. The delusion, an illusion. Okay. Is really what it is. How about you guys? Tell me, when was the time you guys woke up? Infinite Seaver, you're so funny. Yeah, literally. No, it's true. It's like, okay, like every time they're like, this happened, or a meteorite's coming, or whatever, and it's like, okay, and like at this point in time, I'm like, okay, and like every year is something, you know? You said 1144 is the open revolution door and we can jump in between. No way, you're Libra rising Aries sun. I'm going to screenshot that because I didn't know that, because I always see every time I screenshot this green screen thing comes up. And this isn't always a thing. It's just recently. Anyways, what was I saying? Yes, so I've been seeing 1144 like before, not recently, but there was a period of time where I was always seeing 1144. So it's this. The end. Yeah, and nothing ever happens. No, nothing ever happens. Exactly. That's why you have to live your life. Exactly. You know what, you guys, like for me personally, since CV and 2020, when I realized that like not everybody was on board and everyone was like incredibly brainwashed, I was like, F you all. I'm just going to do whatever I want to do and I'm just going to have fun. Like that's all like my mantra. I keep telling you guys, especially in today's live, like do what you want, do what you love, have fun, and just like unplug, okay? Because they're always trying to do something. They're always trying to siphon the energy. They're always trying to do this. They're trying to do that. And it's just like, enough, you know? It's just like too much at this point in time. Hey, Lisa. One of you guys said now is ending in 2027. Yeah, see, they're always pushing the goalposts. They can't have the world end because who are they going to siphon off of? You know what I mean? And that's the other thing. Oh my gosh, when people are talking about the NUCLEAR, like that's not going to happen. Okay. That can't happen because if that happens, the whole world is going to like end. I have to speak between the lines here. So it's just what it is, you know? So that's not going to happen either. People are always like fear mongering, being like, oh, they're going to do this. They're going to like pull it out. It's going to be this, it's going to be that. And it's like, if they do that, then the people who are running the show or who actually pull out the, you know, NUCLEAR, like all those things, it's like, they're going to like have to cross out too then, you know? And they're like too narcissistic for that to happen. So it's this. Oh my gosh, I love that. You said, let's throw a party every time it's supposed to end. We should. I love that. You said you're old enough to have seen many predictions of the end and you know it never happens. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's always like all the time. And now it's just like always like ramping up. It's really, really what it is. Oh no, wait, you're 4/11. Nice. So you're April 11th, right? You woke up in 2018. Nice. Yes. What else did you guys wake up? You said you were like that, just 2000 was your parents. Yeah, I'm sure when they were like, the computers are not going to be able to work anymore and it's not going to be able to read the number 2. And it's just like, binary code is ones and zeros. I actually took a class on that when I was in my university. So really interesting. You said you always get confused when a friend or family member shows jealousy towards you. Where is this energy coming from? Tiffany, I feel like just based off of everything that you've said so far, I feel like you're a very high vibrational being and you have a lot of light energy. And just when you have light energy, you bring up people's shadows, okay? And it has nothing to do with you. It's all their stuff. So you have to unplug. No need to get confused. It's just because they don't have that frequency. Like sometimes people just don't have the frequency is really what it is. And everybody can work on that, but most people don't want to. Sometimes it's easier for people to use other people. It's just like really messed up. So yes, the reaction from your side probably is to cut them off, or like not permanently cut them off, but like, you know, energetically, so they can't interfere. Does that make sense? So they can't affect you is really what it is. Because again, you're Pisces, so there's that sensitivity energy where it's like, why are they like this, you know? But it's just like some people are just dark, and yeah, they feel like they can't achieve that, or like they've lost that touch of like the touch, you know, within themselves, like with that part of themselves, you know, they're not in touch with it anymore. What's this? You said mind effort. Yeah, they're always trying to F with everyone's minds. Oh yay, I'm glad. Thank you, heavy duty Ralph. You said, do we choose our parents? That's what they used to say, and they used to say that in the, what's it called, in the new age, that we chose our parents. You said, and can NPCs be woken up? No, I think NPCs are just kind of like, I think they're actually like bots. Like they're glitching a lot of the time. I was saying in the earlier part of this live, I noticed now when I'm trying to order like an Uber or a Lyft, depends where you guys are in the world, but, or like even when I'm traveling to, but especially like around here, when I'm trying to order one, like before it used to take like really fast to get one. Sometimes now it takes so long to get one. So I'm like, I guess the NPCs are just like fading out, right, of the picture, because like, where are they? You know what I mean? And there's like less people everywhere too, you know? So the NPCs are kind of like fading out. Does that make sense? But yeah, in terms of choosing our parents, I can see how that could be true to a certain extent. These days with like the frame of mind that I have, I don't really think about that, to be honest. So it's hard to say. But yeah, in the new age, they always say that you chose your parents, you chose your family. Like I can see how people kind of incarnate into certain situations, like because there's like things to clear or like things to neutralize. So it's hard to say. It's hard to say because like, you know, again, these days, like the way that I see it is like people who grow up, let's say in really abusive households or situations, like did they choose that really? Do you know what I mean? So it's like, I feel like again, with the new age, it's like two truths and a lie. So it's hard to say. You said we don't choose our parents, we choose to shift our parents. Interesting. It's hard to come into. That's your own thought. Interesting. Oh, thank you. Have I considered writing a book or a podcast? Well, this is technically a podcast. Just close your eyes and it's going to be a podcast. But I did, okay, jokes aside, I did have a podcast very briefly, okay? But I kind of got over looking for people to put on there. So that was like right before CV started. It was like January 2020. I was like so excited about it. So I did 7 episodes. It was on Spotify. I was like interviewing people and we were like talking about spiritual things and like it was like different types of people. It was still when I was working at that wellness space, so a lot of people were from there. You know, we talk about different things, energy work, energy healing, perceptions, and so on and so forth. So yeah, but then after that I was like, oh my gosh, I have to keep looking for people to put on my podcast. And then like CV started and I just got distracted. I was like, okay, forget that. So yes, and then I do have books, I'm gonna put in quotations because it's in a book format, but it's like one-liners. So check it out, you guys. It's under I don't really like advertise these things, but yeah, it's all on my website. It's gonna be under my shop. It's on Amazon. One of them I think is like in the format of an ebook, but the other one, like both of them were like originally in the format of like physical books, but I think the other one, like it was also an ebook. But anyways, whatever, you guys can see what's going on. And there I write my like one-liners. So like things that I think of that I want copywritten because I know they're my ideas are in my books, okay? But the books are like one-liners. So it's not like me writing for like days and days and days because I just don't have the patience for that. So usually when I get the idea or the concept, I write it. And I was thinking recently, I feel like now that I'm more on Threads, I've been like writing more on there, but I do still like kind of have like a sidebar thing where I do write my separate ideas. But yeah, it's this. So yeah, check it out. But thank you, you guys are awesome. You guys all rock. Yeah, just close your eyes. It's gonna be a podcast. Oh, thank you, Infinite Zebra. You're so funny. Yeah, with your comment there at the bottom. Hey, Spiker, how are you doing? I love you guys too. No, you guys are awesome. What do I think about astrocartography? With astrocartography, like, I feel like it's very general. Does that make sense? Like, I think it'll be better if you look at the synastry, okay, between you and that place. Does that make sense? Because astrocartography is going to be like, your Jupiter line is this, and your moon line is this, and it's like very generalized. So if you look at the synastry between you and a specific city, like when that city was born, I think it's going to give you a little bit more information, okay? No, interesting. You're asking if I'm left-handed. No, I'm right-handed. Let's see, what else are you guys saying in here? Yeah, infinite zebra is true, but you know, the way that I see it these days, I'm kind of here to plant the seeds. Okay, I put it out there into the consciousness. Like, obviously there's you guys who understand what I'm saying, which I'm so grateful that you guys are here and a part of this community and a part of this live and a part of this channel and so on and so forth. Like, I'm grateful for you guys. Thank you. But it's like, I see it as like, I'm planting the seeds and then eventually the collective is going to catch up, because everything that people are talking about today, I've been talking about for years. You know what I mean? So it's this. Thank you. I'm glad that it resonates. I'm just looking at what else you guys are saying in here. You said, how do we unplug? Just ignore. Exactly. You said you want to help, but you don't think it works unless they want to heal too. Exactly. That's exactly what it is. You guys, it's wasting your energy, okay? You can't help or heal anybody. You can plant seeds. Again, you can plant seeds. You can hold space. But even that, like, let's say you're sitting there and you're just like listening to someone and you're listening to all their problems. It's just like, again, unless there's some sort of exchange there, you might feel drained. You know what I mean? That's why a lot of the time those services are paid, right? Like, let's say a therapist or a psychologist. So at least, you know, there's some sort of exchange. I usually say to people, like, even if you're doing some kind of work in this world and you feel drained, you're probably not charging enough, okay, for your service. Anything that you guys do that might be service oriented, if you feel drained, you're probably not charging enough money, okay, for that particular thing, okay? And you have to explore why that is. Like, is it a scarcity and blah, 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 so on and so forth. Like, through the whole journey is really, really what it is. But yeah, you have to, it's just like, it's unfortunate, but sometimes, again, even if you're highly empathetic and so on and so forth, and again, you might have healing energy. Yes, you might want to help people. You might want to heal people. Like, that's going to be, yes, in your nature. But sometimes, and especially if it manifests in the form of a relationship, it's just draining and it's wasting your energy. Do you know what I mean? Because you could be using that to assist multiple people at once, okay? Which I think is a better way to use the energy. Do you know what I mean? And again, for those of you who are wondering what you should do or like what your life path is, just like look at what your life path has been. Do you know what I mean? What has your experience been? What have you guys experienced in your life, right? That's usually connected to your life purpose in one way, shape, or form. And you just want to speak, because at this point in time, like the current times that we're living in, all we really have is our voice at this point in time. Do you know what I mean? Also in the higher vibrations, like people don't really use a voice. They communicate telepathically, okay? So we have a voice for a reason. So it's this, so it is this, but yeah, sometimes you just have to disconnect and just like allow people to do what they want to do. Because I've noticed, like, even just like in general, like usually I can see sometimes where, you know, let's say like someone's going to progress, let's say it's a relationship and so on and so forth, but sometimes you have to let people play out their situations. I was just thinking about this today about somebody that I know. And I was thinking psychically, and I'm like, how come nobody told this person that's like in their closer circle? Because I kind of know them like more from like a distance. And I'm like, how come nobody told this person in their closer circle to like not engage in that situation? I was just thinking that, but I'm just like, I don't know them like that. First of all, second of all, if you don't ask me, I'm not going to say anything because it's like not my place, right? Third of all, nobody even listens. You know what I mean? Like even if you tell them, nobody listens. So it's like when they're in these situations, again, people like sometimes want to hear what they want to hear, you know? And that's just like kind of a waste of your energy. You know what I mean? Oh, nice. Your life path 5. You said, according to astrocartography, you'd end up somewhere in the middle of the ocean. Stop. Literally, most of my quote unquote good lines are in the middle of the ocean, but I love the water, so. Thank you. Thank you, 1seed1144. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I think that's my Libra energy, okay? Because I really try to be balanced, and I think ultimately that's the goal, to be balanced in your masculine, feminine energy is really what it is. Vortex is usually a fated event. Vortex is a fated event, okay? The way that I see it, it's a fated event and it puts you on your path. There's no need to be sitting and be like, oh, what's this event going to be? And like never leaving your house, right? Again, we don't want to be in the fear energy at all. That's why I, even when I do my readings, I leave Vortex for the end. Because I'm like, okay, like take it with a grain of salt. You don't need to be sitting there and be like, oh, what's going to happen? You know, again, we're coming out of the fear-based energy. But yes, it's usually a fated event. Maybe it even happened already. With Vortex, the house, okay, is going to tell you who the person is or people that you experience the fated event through. The sign is the vibe, or like, you know, the vibe of the event that you experience, okay? So for example, Vortex, let's say it's in the 4th house. 4th house is going to be your family or family members or someone within your family, okay? 5th house is going to be maybe your inner child or like children, or maybe do an improv class, an improv teacher, like someone in the creative field, okay, perhaps. 6th house is going to be your daily acquaintances, work, okay, people, colleagues, all these people, okay, maybe like the bus driver or the grocery store person, okay, it could be this. And then we have the 7th house. The 7th house is going to be a lover, okay, or a partner or a friend. or whatever, an interpersonal relationship. The 8th house can be an intimate partner, a spouse. It could be a therapist. It could be an astrologer. It could be a psychologist. Okay, all these people. The 9th house vertex can be, you know, a spiritual teacher of some sort. Maybe it's a yoga instructor. Maybe it's a guru. Maybe it's a motivational speaker. Maybe it's like someone at the church or wherever, some sort of religious figure. So is this, okay? Bus driver. Sometimes you'll find inspiration in like the most like, you know, day-to-day types of places. Oh my gosh, Dead, you said, is your vertex Uber drivers? No, I actually have to check and see what house my vertex is in, but no, it's not. But you guys, I don't know if some of you guys are new here. Like, I don't drive, so I think that's why bus is on my mind, because I either commute like with the bus or sometimes I Uber places. So that's me. What else are you guys saying in here? What else? Let me see. Hey, Anna. How do you plant seeds? You just kind of like drop the truth bombs, you know what I mean? And then just like continue talking normally, you know? It's like you guys are laughing. You're like, oh, haha, yeah, it was so funny when Brad did that. This earth is ruled by Saturn. Yeah, oh my gosh, wasn't that the funniest thing? You know, it's like that. Hey, from Tennessee. Oh my gosh, and your name is Phoenix too. Actually, no, that has nothing to do with Tennessee. But anyways, hey. Okay, meditate. Okay, so this is the thing. I think a lot of people try to intellectualize these things. It depends on you as a person, what can get you to switch your brain, okay? So meditation, yes, it could be you staring at a dot for 5 hours. Like, yeah, that could be meditation. It could be through yoga because it's breath work. Okay, it could be through yoga. It could be you lying down if you don't fall asleep, listening to a guided meditation. Yes, it could be sitting, right? It could also be walking. It could be cooking. It could be cleaning. It could be dancing. It could be going to the gym. Okay, kind of where you're able to switch into the other part of your brain. Okay. So that's how to meditate. It's any of these things that kind of get you into some sort of mindless rhythm, okay? And then you're able to kind of go into the other part of your brain, the creative part of your brain. Yeah, shower, that's a good one. The shower is a good one too. You're welcome. You said meditation for you started when you went outside into nature. You were always listening to loon calls on the lake you went to. Yeah, it honestly, like, it depends. When I worked corporate, you know, I loved going to yoga because, again, the corporate was intense and then the yoga was kind of like, you know, like a way for me to slow down, right? So that was how, you know, meditation took place for me. But it's like eventually kind of get into the meditative state. That's kind of when you're accessing the crown and you're going into the psychic realms. Ultimately, you want to be like in that meditative state permanently, right? I hope that makes sense. It's like when you're meditating with your eyes open because you're in the crown chakra at that point in time. Does that make sense? Vertex in Virgo, 7th house. So you experience this fated event through maybe a lover, a partner, a friend, okay? And it's a Virgo type of event. So maybe some relationship that you were in or whoever you're asking for triggered your healing journey. There you go. That could have been your fated event. Okay. It could be this random example, but it could be something like this. You said meditation is both sides of the mind being used. Yeah, exactly. That's why sometimes like lying down isn't really going to allow you to fully meditate because you might fall asleep. Maybe you're just really tired and you just needed that session, you know, the sleeping session. Okay, you guys, if you want your own natal chart reading, synastry reading, progressed natal chart reading, or mini natal chart reading, send me an email, okay? And we'll go from there. An email window should pop up. When you click it, the email window pops up. Now, also, you guys, I have business guidance for those of you who are interested, maybe in starting your own business, maybe you started your own business, okay? So that's what the business guidance is for. So I have a meeting for that. And then I have business guidance, like one-on-one as well, if you guys are interested in doing the program. Thank you, you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being a part of the chat, for being a part of the live, for being a part of the channel. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for your likes, your shares, your subscribes. I hope you all have a beautiful rest of your day or evening, wherever you are. Bye.